This is Ken Rockwell. Now live on the golf course here, we're going to talk about my D780 and your D780. All you need to do to get in on the fun is to send me in the comments section your questions. Hey, this is looking good. Admittedly, I'm one single guy. I'm not a YouTuber, as they say, so I don't have a dedicated video guy to sit around and shoot me all day. If I did, we would have, hey, Pablo Perez, thank you very much. We've been on the air now a total of about 10 seconds. And any questions you guys have, I'm just gonna set my stopwatch. I know how long we've been live. There we go. Costa Rica, I have not been to Costa Rica. I've been to Guatemala. I love it down there. You guys know you got the colors. Actually, this video isn't looking too bad. My concern is I'm on the golf course and I don't want to get too loud. Are you guys able to hear my audio okay? Because we're going to take your questions about the D780, which I just got and I love. And the review, to which I have linked down in the description, has sample images. Oh, Pablo, thank you. Can you guys hear the audio okay? I don't know if that's working for you. Oh, you can. Okay, good. Because I'm trying to keep it quiet because we've got a golf course back there and it's a sacred place. Croatia, Europe, yes. Is that not the birthplace of Nikola Tesla, to whom we owe pretty much everything? He invented wireless, he invented radio. Okay, good. I am good to go. Audio is good. Hey, so do you guys have any questions about the D780? My apology about the video. I said I don't have a dedicated video guy, so normally we'd have reflectors on my face with sunlight, the light in my face, and scrims. Yes, Nikola Tesla. How long do I think it will be until Nikon comes out with the Pro Z body with an integrated vertical grip? I have no idea. The problem is Nikon really doesn't seem to have the development resources that Canon or Sony do. Sony's been going nuts on this. Look at this thing up over my head here. Sony's been going nuts. Canon's been going nuts. Canon already has all the lenses we need. Nikon can't even get the lenses we need out for the Z system. So honestly, I have no idea. It's a complete crapshoot with Nikon. They come out with crazy lenses, you know, just barely. They don't even ship the 70-200 2.8 yet. Only got decent mediocre specs, high price. Yes, well, the reason for the high prices is actually, I didn't realize why I was like so excited about my D780, but it turns out that it's the first full-frame digital single-lens reflex, or any full-frame single-lens reflex Nikon has introduced in over 2 years. So I haven't actually had a real camera, a real Nikon in my hands for over 2 years that was new. The D780 is awesome. And the D850 is awesome. But the D780 is awesome just because it's a real single-lens reflex camera again, as opposed to one of these, you know, swishy-washy mirrorless things, which are always too slow for real shooting. I love about mirrorless the fact that I can see everything in the viewfinder, but I don't love the fact that everything takes too darn long to work, and my lenses are only half compatible with my Z. It's so nice to have my lenses work flawlessly again on my D780. Everything couples. All my old manual focus lenses, my old manual insert into the lens camera fisheyes and so forth work. It's all good. In reference to the price of the D780, they didn't price it wrong. They priced it high because it's the first, you know, I'm gonna move my head here because here we go. That's a scenic background look. Look, okay, there we go. They priced it high. When you do marketing, what happens is you price it high when it first comes out because it's a new thing, everybody has to have it. And there's those kind of guys who always have to have it first. You know your neighbor with the new Ferrari every week. He will pay full price. And then the price gradually drops, or it's called erosion. The price will drop. Look at the D750. The D750 came out, it was $2,000 or so when it came out, which in today's dollars is probably about the same as the asking price of the D780. And what happens is it gradually goes down, and it was down to $1,200 or $1,300 or $1,100 over Christmas. It only jumped back up the instant they introduced the 780, so the 780 didn't look like as much of a ripoff. So yes, the 780 price will continue to come down, and you know, if you want the lower price, get the D750. Let me go back in my comments here to take some of your other questions. But that's my thoughts on pricing. If you don't like it, just wait. Here in the United States, the price, actually every place in the world, depends a lot on the yen to dollar exchange rate, or the yen to your local customs or local, I'm trying to read here and talk at the same time. Okay, that was Brett Morrison's question. Pro Z body. Nobody knows. Gripe the D780, mediocre price. But you know what is fun though? Shooting with it the first time I had it out. Look at my samples at my review, which is linked to in the description of this video, kenrockwell.com. And look at those sample files. I can shoot it handheld. My favorite lens with this camera, in fact, the only lens I've used at my D780 so far, is my 28 to 300 millimeter. Why? Because it does everything I need. I own everything Nikon has ever made, from fisheyes to ultra telephotos. And to be honest, this is the only thing I've needed with. This lens does everything. I can shoot it in the dark. Again, we have a live golf course going on over here. I'm going to keep it quiet. It'll shoot in the dark. This camera auto ISOs all the way up to ISO 51,000. And as you can see, I can shoot it in the pitch black, and the results look just awesome. Okay, Paradise 9 doesn't have a 70. That's okay. To be honest, I just called the title a D780 because that's what I had in my hand. And when people ask about, but you guys can ask me anything you want. Quick question. He bought the 28D based on my review on my website. Any chance you're talking about vintage lenses? Excellent question. Yes, there's so much to talk about. Vintage lenses, Leicas, Nikon's finest, which was the 35 millimeter and the early DSLRs and so forth. By all means, we have time to talk about everything, but we don't have all the time to talk about everything, so that's the problem. I think probably the best thing I can talk about on YouTube is the classic stuff that only I know about. There's tons of kids out there. I mean, my kids, they're like 11 and when they were about 8 years old, they started on YouTube. And the kids in their elementary school class have multiple YouTube channels. Have multiple YouTube channels for their different interests. One's for interest on cars, one for their interest on school supplies or whatever. So by all means, the classics is something I'm extremely well versed in. As you know, gosh, my website itself is a classic. So sure, in the future we'll do that. Okay, they priced it wrong. Where am I here? Don't have? Okay, John asks, he's struggling with using his D5. What I'm doing with my finger here, oh, you can't see it. I'm going through the comments on my screen. I should say this is a live broadcast, and I'm taking your comments as questions here live at kenrockwell.tv. He's struggling with his D500 as a trade-in camera to take advantage of the promotional offer. Which promotional offer? I don't know. I think they had one in the D780. D500, that's still a current camera. Something tells me the promotional offer might be taking advantage of you. Or here are my thoughts. Whenever you're wondering what your camera's worth, go to eBay, click on sold listings, and that will show you what people actually pay for things. That's the actual value of anything on this planet, is what you can get for it on eBay. No, anything tangible. And remember, eBay keeps about 15% as a commission. So take 15% off of that, and that's about what you get for eBay. This is an excellent question. Wheezy G asks, is the D780 better than the Z6? It's totally different. I think on my website, if all you're going to do is video, and you want to be able to play back and see playback through the viewfinder and zoom in and set menus through the viewfinder, then the Z6 is better. On the other hand, if you're going to shoot action and sports and you want fast response, a D780 is better. For price, the Z6 is best. It depends. I should say, if you're a still photographer, and I'm a still photographer, I would prefer the D780. I prefer single lens reflex over mirrorless. Well, if I'm actually shooting action. On the other hand, if I'm shooting very slowly, I want to see every shot played back and zoomed in, I prefer the mirrorless because the golfer's getting ticked off of me here. I don't have to put my glasses on to look at that tiny little screen on the back of my camera. Let me see if I can get up here. I priced it wrong. Professional journalists in war zones using mirrorless ain't going to happen. DSLRs do reign supreme. We have to realize it's all marketing. The Japanese want to take our dollars. The way they do that is coming out with new stuff that they tell us we have to have or we would die without. As you guys all know, I've been shooting for over 50 years. I've been shooting with Nikon for almost 40. I could shoot anything on any camera. It just takes less work with the better cameras and more work with the others. If we look at Pablo's question, he's shooting his D300S, excellent camera, and sticking with DX, excellent. D500 enough replacement for my oldie but goodie? You know, why bother? It just weighs less. Actually, I would go for it. Depends. If you want to shoot the old lenses, which I don't do. I don't shoot manual focus lenses on a DX camera because I really don't like to mix formats. The D7500 actually skips that. Honestly, I stopped at the D7100. It was all a camera I ever needed. There really is nothing different in the rest of these series. Save a little for D500. You know, I have an article called Is It Worth It? And I would look at that on my website, kenrockwell.com, where, again, we're taking your questions live here in the comment section at kenrockwell.tv. Question about is it worth it? It's all a question of what is money worth to you. If you're a student, working part-time, trying to make ends meet like a normal person, no, you don't need any of this new stuff. On the other hand, you're some rich guy living in Switzerland, retired, retired from managing multiple hedge funds in New York City and Luzerne, Switzerland, and money doesn't mean that much to you, by all means, then you deserve just go out and buy whatever the newest is because it's usually best. Okay, Riley Smith asks me, Ken, please do some Leica and Canon reviews and videos. Thank you. You know, by all means, Canon is certainly in the thick. That's what I actually prefer to shoot for the most part. I just haven't gotten around to doing much with Canon here on my little YouTube channel. That's coming. Leica, oh gosh, Leica is eternal. I think Leica is above YouTube. Yeah, Leica, I mean, Leica is beyond real life. I think YouTube is more for children. Leica is for immortals who don't really need to go on television. Silent as a shutter on the D780. Well, I don't know. Let's find out, Ryan asks. Ryan? You know, it's not bad. That is the quiet, continuous mode. Here's a regular mode. Okay, golf cart cruising by. You know, I shouldn't say you know. Watching this on video because of the automatic level control going on and so forth, there's really no way to tell how loud it is. It's not that loud. What's curious is Nikon's pro cameras, like the D5, D3, all those are super loud because everything inside goes super fast, so they can shoot a very high frame rate, so they are very loud. What amuses me is my pro DS, you know, the single-digit cameras, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, now D6. I can hear the sound of that ricochet off my neighbor's windows when I shoot that in my house. On the other hand, the mid-level cameras, D300, D7500, those, they make a moderate amount of noise. Like this D780, it's a moderate amount of noise. But the quietest cameras are the cheapest. My D3500, much quieter because it's all slower and smaller. Okay, I'm getting a little behind here on the comments. How good was the video? I don't know. Be honest, I don't shoot DSLR video. I think that's a big scam. DSLRs don't do well for video. Unless you have a permanent manual focus, follow focus person working your camera, they don't autofocus well because the physics are stuff with a large sensor. They can't autofocus well. This video here is being shot on my iPhone 11 Max Pro, stuck on a tripod, working completely by battery off whatever crazy wireless connection I have out in the middle of nowhere here. So I'm not sure why people shoot videos on their interchangeable lens cameras, unless, of course, if you're based in Hollywood, in which case you'd be probably shooting an Arri or a Panavision with a crew of like 6 guys just running the camera. Let's see, am I picking off the golfers? No, I think we're okay. Okay, let me go back here. How Santa showed Fu? Okay, LJ asked me, how good was the video on D7100? I don't remember. I don't think I even shot it on the problem is, the camera companies lie all the time and tell you how autofocus works. No, it usually works pretty crummy. Even on the mirrorless cameras now, doesn't work that great, at least not compared to a camcorder or a phone, where the small sensor, well, okay, let me just get it all out here. The reason a small sensor works better for video, like your phone, is because it's the physics of things. The small sensor uses a short focal length lens. The short focal length lens, in turn, uses a short focal length, I should say. A short focal length lens has to move exponentially less far, in and out, to focus near and far. It's not just that it's twice as long for a lens with twice the focal length. I forget the numbers, but it's like maybe 1/4. It's a square or a cube function. So therefore, when you shoot on a little format camera, like a dedicated camcorder with a little sensor, or a phone, the lens has to move so insignificantly that it's very easy for it to follow focus. Like right here, you see it's focused on my hand, and if I get out of the way, background, foreground. Interchangeable lens cameras can't do that. Comparison, not cost. Oh, D5, oh, okay, John, back to your question. You're asking about the D500, uh-oh. Just me here playing with my phone. D500 versus D780, it's all about format. The smaller format camera, the D500, is gonna have a deeper depth of field. It's also more intended for sports with a higher frame rate. The D780 is my personal preference because I'm shooting still lives. I'm shooting, you know, pretty pictures of trees, sunsets, late at night. So it's a question of what format do you want and what lenses do you have. So I prefer the 780, but that's for still shots. Photography in New York City, I love to take your classes. I don't know, when I'm in New York, I'm usually visiting my family, and I don't have a whole lot of time to run classes, so it's not likely. But again, if there's enough interest, again, some of our guys, those awesome guys at B&H are always doing stuff, or Adorama, maybe they'll invite me for one of their programs. You never know. Always watch this space. And again, if you go to kenrockwell.com, just click the website. Oh, excuse me, it's a website, of course, it's a website. Click the workshops link. Always has what's new. To be honest, I am planning some things for springtime, California coast. I just haven't gotten around to planning. We want to go maybe San Luis Obispo, maybe Death Valley. Well, maybe not Death Valley, but anyway, keep an eye on the workshops page. Here we go. JRS, he knows it's kind of old at the moment, but he just got a 610 based on my budget. And being honest, yes, a 610 will take exactly the same pictures as every other Nikon camera. And as you know, you got a good bargain on that because people are afraid of it. Well, it's awesome. Comment on the Nikon manual focus 135 f2 pre-DC as a portrait lens. It is a fantastic portrait lens. Yes. Okay. Dennis asks me, And 1220. Oh, he asked me at 1220. Okay, I'm running about 5 minutes behind in the comments. Again, here at KenRockwell.tv, we are live out in the desert on the golf course. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments section. I'm going to answer these all live. Okay, back to the 135. Again, go to KenRockwell.com and just go in my search box and type Nikon 135 f2. And you'll find I have a full review of the original Nikon 135 f2, I think it was 1970s. It is a fantastic lens. It is ultra sharp stop down. It's a little bit lower contrast, shot wide open at f2, but the bokeh is incredibly good, better than the other well, actually not better, different than the DC lens. So yes, it's an excellent lens. It's a pro secret. Most people don't know about it. It's a manual focus lens, the 135 f2, and it sells for a bargain. Okay, I'm trying to stay. Okay, comment done. Okay, that's the 135 f2. D780 autofocus compared to D780 autofocus. Speed compared to the D850. As far as I can see, they are the same. It's the same Nikon system. It's the same 50 or so autofocus zones. Everything works about the same. There's a couple of dimensions. Actually, there's probably 4 dimensions in which autofocus works. The in and out dimension, ever since 1986, when we came out with the first Nikon autofocus cameras, they focus about the same speed. The ability of the camera to focus from near to far to near to far, again, this is being shot on my iPhone, is all about the same. What the newer cameras do is have the ability to track multiple things around your frame, and when they can do it automatically in 3D, that's what takes the processing power that the newer cameras are much better at. So otherwise, autofocus, I don't know any difference. To be honest, I notice very little difference between the various Nikon cameras except for their basic size. They take exactly the same pictures. It's just how quickly they do it. I'm flipping through my comments now to try to find my next question. Gosh, I love you guys. You can ask questions obviously faster than I can answer them because there's hundreds of you online and just one of me here. Okay, in terms of reliability, the D780 autofocus is great. I mean, the autofocus systems in Nikons in every camera get better every generation. I really have not had any problem with it, but I'm shooting still subjects. I'm not shooting action with it. Okay, Kelly Badger asks, he shot his F100 for the first time in 15 years, how much he's missed full frame. His last Nikon was a D200 and still have 3 nice lenses. Would I recommend the D780 or Z6? Kelly, the difference between the 780, which I should say I've got right here, and the Z6 is entirely like girls versus boys or like diesel versus gasoline. They're totally different. So the question is, what are you trying to do with them? Or what do you want them to do for you? Their talents are that the single lens reflex shoots immediately. Everything responds instantly. You press the buttons, use the menus, it's instantaneous. Autofocus, instantaneous. Nikon doesn't talk about it because it doesn't help them sell cameras, but the Z series cameras autofocus is pretty crummy. Even for still photos, here's what the Z cameras can't do. For instance, if I hold something in front of a Z camera that's already focused on the background, it won't focus on what's immediately here in the foreground. It'll keep trying to focus on the background. It's pretty bad. My iPhone here, of course, is focused, boom, right on my hand, because the iPhone has a better autofocus system than Nikon. Is it focusing far now? I can't tell, because when I get out of my field of view, hey, that's a nice picture. Opinions on Brexit, Kid Flint. No, I probably do, but considering I'm still trying to get to my camera questions, I will pass on that. Let me get back to where I was. Again, I'm running about 5 minutes behind. Let's see, it's now 12:29 or 3:29, East Coast, West Coast. Ryan Fu says, thanks for sharing. Okay, I'm going through my comments here. Okay, Stephen asks, is the Z50 a good upgrade for the D300S? 35DX, 135, that he hardly uses. The Z50, again, mirrorless versus SLR. Maybe nobody wants to cover this because Nikon wants to push the mirrorless because that's what's hot and new. It's totally different. If you're shooting nature landscapes, and more precisely, if you want to see the playback and go through the playback and zoom all the way in and look for sharpness and really see what's going on and do that through the viewfinder and be able to zoom in for manual focus through the viewfinder and then have to put on these glasses to see your screen nice and big, go mirrorless. If you're shooting anything that moves, stick with the DSLR. Also, too, with the Z50, I would go straight with the kit lenses. The 16 to 50 lens is fantastic, and the 50 to 250 lens is fantastic. I would not think, in fact, Nikon always does this. Nikon always tries to get you to think that, oh, just buy this new camera, and all your old junk is going to work just great. Like when I bought my F100 in 1999. When I bought my F100 in 1999, they're like, oh, your manual focus lenses will work just perfectly. Trust us, just buy us. Don't even look at Canon or other better brands. Well, actually, Canon wasn't better that much yet in 1999. But anyway, no, by the time you add the FTZ adapter, which is a big thing, and the big DSLR lenses, you've lost all the magic of a compact camera. So I would not plan on taking any of my lenses with me when I go into the Z50. In which case, you got to say, well, I'm going to buy the whole system over again from scratch. So maybe you should look at Sony if autofocus performance is important to you. Maybe you should look at Canon if overall ergonomics is important to you. So the good thing is it opens up your options, but the bad thing is don't expect that all your old stuff that works great on the older cameras is really going to be the best thing to take with you going to the newer technology. Okay, and I'm trying to go back in your comments. Okay, where am I? Okay, D500 make the jump to full frame with the D780. Looking for new all-around, they want to start focusing more on sport-related shooting. You know, for sports, if you're always shooting long lenses, there's nothing wrong with DX. In fact, DX gives you longer lenses for free. For instance, you could use your 70-200 2.8 on your DX camera. Sees the same thing as trying to go out and spend $10,000 on Nikon's newest 120 to 300 millimeter of 2.8. So for an extra $8,000, you get exactly the same pictures with less depth of field by going full frame. For sports, I would say stick with DX if you can. Honestly, for sports, unless you're going to step full all the way up to a D3, D4, D5, or D6, if you're only going to be piddling around with their DX cameras, I should say with their like a D300 or D780 or whatnot, stick with DX. Okay, Pablo says, thank you for answering his question. He's studying and living Canary Islands, Spain. Oh yeah, the whole world wants to go visit. Don't say that. Photography of pure passion, don't want to change his DX lenses because he likes how sharp they are. Then you're all set. You know, you never need to buy new cameras. Honestly, all my studio shots of the products you see, people go, oh, they're so sharp. How many megapixels? I shoot those in my D3 in my studio. Never move it. It looks great. He could go FTZ and sell his lenses and buy the 2 new DX lenses. Steven asks, honestly, the great thing of the 2 new DX lenses for the Z50 is, as a kit, I think when I got mine, I paid $1,200 for both lenses in the camera. Great deal. So get that. In fact, get that first. And then you can ask yourself, do you even want to hang on to the old lenses? Because you probably won't want to because they're just bigger. Okay. Dragon asks, the autofocus better fast than D750? If you're referring with D780, I don't see any difference, but I haven't actually compared them one-to-one. Honestly, I see very little difference in autofocus from one camera to the next to Nikon. They're all pretty good, and they're all about as good. Why didn't Nikon put a battery grip for the D780? I have no idea whatsoever. That seems like a strange misguidance on their part. Maybe they just figured they weren't going to make any money. What I don't have specs for is how many people actually buy Nikon's grip versus third-party grips, and that I don't know. So I don't have an answer. I usually have an answer for most things, but I don't know why they did that. Okay, Aaronit asks, hi Ken, the photography market is mainly dominated by Japanese companies. Why haven't any major American companies ventured in the photography market? Well, actually, don't get me started. As an American, we innovate. The Germans invented the automobile. Let's see, what do we Americans invent? You know, you can argue this all over because a lot of people immigrate to the United States and then become great inventors. Like Google, one of their founders was born in Russia. Guy invented, I think it was PayPal, born in Iran. Elon Musk, one of the great automotive innovators, born in Africa, South Africa. And so why hasn't America? Well, let's see. America invented the world's first practical dry plate. So you didn't have to bring an ox cart full of chemicals around. That was by George Eastman, invented the first practical dry plate. The first practical film was invented again by George Eastman of Kodak. So we could actually have portable cameras. You could just roll up from shot to shot and go like this from frame to frame instead of having to carry around glass plates around. So America's innovations have gone far beyond photography. Of course, this is being shot on an iPhone, which I think is the most innovative bit of photography that there is. Again, designed in America. So the question is, why Japan? Because the Japanese are crazy in a very good way. Americans, the greatest American products the world knows us for are instruments of mass destruction. We invented atomic bombs and used them first in combat. We invent the world's highest technology fighter planes, radar systems, communications, electronic countermeasures, electronic countermeasures, radar, again, invented by Nikola Tesla. I was proud of his American citizenship. But the key is the Japanese are crazy, much like we Americans when it comes to things like handguns and rifles and personal protection and so forth. America excels at making these things. Japanese excel at making cameras because it's something they love. And that's why the Japanese companies excel at making cameras. You don't hear a lot of cameras coming out of, say, South Africa. Why? Because it's just not what they do down there. They do other things. So it's just a matter of a cultural thing. The Japanese have always loved cameras, much like the French love their food, love their wine, love their cheese. So everybody is different. Let me come back here. So that's why I think we haven't seen too many American companies. American companies are the future. Again, look at the iPhone. Designed, conceived, digital cameras. Duh! Invented by Steve Sasson of Kodak back in 1973. America, really, we're crazy, as you guys know that. We think of things nobody else does, and we actually do something about it. Put guys on the moon, no one else has ever done that. Why? We just do it because we're Americans and we're crazy. Okay, John has read my reviews. They're very good. Thank you. Princess Pingu, the sensor D780 is D750. No, they're very different. The D780 is a completely different resolution. D780 is about 24 megapixels. D850 is about 45 megapixels. BSI CMOS, don't worry about the technology. Just look at the pictures. It doesn't matter. There is a huge difference between every brand. Canon and Nikon have excellent colors. Different, but both excellent. Sony is just kind of blah. I mean, blah, they're accurate, but they're not exciting when you start playing around the JPEG settings. And likewise, Fuji's are optimized highly for people and skin tones. Okay, better call Solace 8514G or 1.8S on a Z6. Oh, by all means, the 1.8S. Simply because the 1.8S is designed native for the Z mount. The 1.4G on an FTZ is going to be clumsy. The optics are going to be fine, maybe not quite as good, but you're never going to see the difference. But it's a question of just going with the flow, so to speak. The 1.8S will autofocus and manual focus a little better because it's designed for those cameras. Also, look at the price, though. I think the 8514G, 14G, incredible lens. You know, it's a question of it's just a lot clumsier by the time you start adding all these adapters to use them on a Z camera. Do you think mirrorless cameras will take over DSLR cameras? Oh, yeah, they already have. I mean, Nikon's going away. Nikon is number 3. Nikon is number 3 behind Sony and Canon. And I think most people buying a new camera probably are buying Sony's, which I talk about a lot. In fact, I'm playing around with the A7R Mark IV that I just got finally since its July introduction this week. I don't have it on camera here, but I do. I think most people are going mirrorless. And Sony and Canon are the leaders. I don't think Nikon is. In fact, I should say, just to reiterate, this is Ken Rockwell live here on kenrockwell.tv. And I'm also the guy behind kenrockwell.com. I'm answering your questions live here on the golf course. If you were to put them in the comment section, I'm getting to them there. And any other questions you have long-term, you can always email me at the kenrockwell.com website. Just click contact and go to where it says email. Ken at kenrockwell.com, not exactly a secret. But yes, mirrorless are going to take over DSLR. For sports and live action, it's going to be tough because even as the frame rates get higher, if you're shooting for a living, I don't see any pros actually shooting mirrorless, say, at the Super Bowl. It's all mostly Canon and Nikon DSLRs because it's instantaneous. Donald Klopper says, please late to the party here from South Africa. Hi. Oh, I may be on for hours. What I love about my iPhone is I'm just live here on a battery, on a tripod, using whatever wireless connection I have, and I'm live, and this battery runs for hours. What small flash unit would I recommend mounted on Nikon without getting away? Excellent. I love my Nikon SB400. I don't have it in my hot little hands. I could run inside, but then I'd have to get off the air here. SB400 is obsolete. They don't make it anymore. I bought mine in 2006. You can buy all you want off of eBay. Go to my website, search up SB400, and you can get all you want off of eBay for about $100 a piece, and they're small. The SB400 is only about this big, about this tall. It's excellent. It has all the power you'd ever need for use on a mirrorless or DSLR camera. It's been my favorite for about 14 years now. Okay, Kai Monroe, hi. Thanks for saying hi. Tariq Hassan Ajan says, would I pick up Sigma glasses over Nikon ones now? Because they are cheaper and quite better, also less in price. Tariq asks an excellent question, and my answer always is, no, I would never buy a Sigma or a Tamron lens. Tokina, maybe. The reason why is, yes, the optics are superb. There's no question about it. It's the mechanics. As my camera repair friends have explained, when you open up a Sigma lens, it's made like crap. Things are attached by tape. Sigma doesn't have parts for them after about 7 years old, so you wind up having to throw away a Sigma lens after 7 years when it finally comes in for service, as opposed to repairing it and getting it back on the road. I mean, I've been shooting for so long. When I started out, I bought off-brand lenses because that's all I could afford. And as I say, the poor man always pays twice because you wind up buying what you finally want, so you've now paid twice. I would buy used camera brand lens. I should say, not would I buy, I do buy. When I want a lens, and if I'm limited by budget, which I haven't been for many years, thank you very much, because I do this full time. But back when I was, because I've been shooting for over 50 years, back when I was limited in cash, yes, I would buy used camera brand lenses, which are always a better buy long term. than cheaping out with buying a Sigma or a Tamron, because simply Sigma or Tamron should work great for about 7 years, and some of them even offer a 7-year warranty, which is fantastic. The problem is after 7 years, you know, you may throw them in the can because they may not be compatible with new cameras. New camera could come out, your lens may not work. I've seen that happen. With the camera brand lenses, you're protected. So if you're looking long term, as I always do, I would stick with camera brands. If you're going to be happy with throwing it away in 7 years, then by all means. In fact, some of the Tamron lenses were excellent. Like their 70 to 200s. I mean, they're like 1/2 or 1/3 the price of the Nikon or Canon 70 to 200 2.8s. In which case, you know, if you break one, you can just throw it away and still be on top of things. How far am I? It's 12:40 or 3:40 now. Okay, about 7 minutes behind on your comments. Thank you very much. I'm going through your live comments, answering them here. Pretty much, you can ask anything you want, and I will cover it. Okay. I need to go back here. Is it worth upgrading to full frame? Okay. Back to the question came in at 27 minutes after the hour. Is it worth upgrading to full frame from APS-C? Jackson Kilger asks. Well, it's not necessarily an upgrade. If you're shooting nature and landscape and really care about the last ounce of high ISO performance, if you want shallow depths of field, yes, go to full frame. On the other hand, APS-C, the pictures look the same. It's not really an upgrade. There's more in focus, there's a deeper depth of field. Now, why is that? It's not the sensor size that creates the depth of field. It's the fact that the smaller sensor uses a shorter focal length lens, larger sensor, longer focal length lens. Longer focal length lenses, which give the same angle of view on the larger format sensor, will have a narrower depth of field. And that's simple physics, and that's the difference. But there's not really much difference otherwise. So if you think, again, Nikon loves to get people to spend their hard-earned dollars to send off to Japan and buy their stuff, but no, you don't need full frame. Where am I here? John Gasparas, you look like you're in very good shape. Do I do anything for that? Yes. I exercise like a maniac. Thank you, John. And the key is, even though I'm in America, I try not to eat an American diet, which is French fries and McDonald's. I try not to eat too much. But yes, get lots of exercise. But I always have. Okay, I got a long acronym, RJRTHNLIGC. Asks, do I plan on doing interviews of audio gear on YouTube? Greetings from the UK. Oh my gosh, and you guys in the UK make the world's best audio gear, especially loudspeakers, which I love. In fact, I just was playing with my quad ESL 63s yesterday. I wasn't actually playing them, I was moving them around. But no, if I do that on YouTube, I will most likely do that on a different channel that I would create, so all the guys interested in photography and not stereo gear don't get deluged by stereo gear stuff. Also, I don't know, once they hear me talk about audio gear, I think a written review. Actually, I just think all the stuff I do, I prefer written reviews. YouTube is just for fun. The fact that I can be goofing off on a lazy Sunday afternoon here and just go live on YouTube. I don't know that I would do that for audio reviews, but you never know. Favorite feature, the D780. Gee, my favorite feature, Mark Herrick asked about the D780. And thank you for asking something about the D780, which is the title of this video. I love its high ISO performance. When I first read the press releases, I wasn't that intrigued because I'm like, oh, there's no more built-in flash, which for me is a real cop-out. I use the built-in flash all the time. Now, some excuses Nikon uses, well, they put some of the wireless antennas in here and so forth, and I forget what Bluetooth. I don't use any Bluetooth or whatnot. Basically, I shoot hard, I take my cards out, stick them in a card reader to get into my camera. But I like the higher ISOs. The old one only went to ISO 12800. This one goes to ISO 51200 and then up to 200,000, and that doesn't look half bad at ISO 200,000. So I shoot at auto ISO by 28 to 300 lens, which non-photographers say, oh no, it's not going to be sharp. Look at my review of the 28 to 300 at kenrockwell.com. Look at the sample image I shot in the D850, and those are pretty sharp. So if you can't get sharp pictures with this lens, it's because, well, you're not doing it right. So yes, I like the higher ISOs, is I think the biggest selling feature for me of a D780 versus the D750. Opinions on Brexit, I think we covered that. I don't know. Sean Thompson, I know what Brexit is. Do I have a comment on Brexit? Okay, I've already mentioned it. You know, the problem is anytime you have a union or a government organization, it's usually inefficient because of the fact that money goes into government and less comes out than goes in because it has to support its own internal work. It's kind of like anything else in engineering almost. It's friction. When you deal with government, there's lots of friction. And I think if Brexit winds up telling member states what to do, then that's bad. I'm told it costs the UK an awful lot of money just being in Brexit. I think the problem is any organization. There's always the guys that really contribute and those who don't. And I don't know, different subject. The old manual focus 300 2.8, a good portrait lens. Yes, Sean Thompson, the old 300 manual focus lens, and there's a full report on that on my website, kenrockwell.com. I say I am Ken Rockwell, coming to you live on kenrockwell.com and Ken Rockwell TV today. Yeah, look that up. It's a fantastic lens. The optics are just as sharp as anything today. It has always been one of Nikon's sharpest lenses. The original 300 2.8, it's fantastic, shot even at 2.8. Use any $10 Chinese adapter. It'll shoot just great on the Z cameras as well, although I prefer it on the digital SLRs. Yeah, that's a great lens. If you don't mind focusing each time, by all means, get that lens. Okay, Paul Connors asked me at 30 minutes past the hour, and it's now 45, so I'm 15 minutes behind in comments. There's some really dumb questions and irrelevant questions here, like the one on Brexit. Keep it photography. Okay, photography focus. Thank you for getting me back on board. Matthew Savi asks, have I tried the D780's built-in 900-second shutter speed yet? No, I haven't. I'm going to love that, though. One of my petty concerns about all these digital cameras is when the D5 came out back in 1999, the D5 was the camera that invented, for instance, pushing this button and rotating a knob to say change, well, not shutter speeds, but say change the mode, the exposure mode, or change the aperture, and so forth. Came out, it had the option. You simply went in menus and you could shoot out to about an hour and a half. It's driven me up the wall. In the past 20 years, cameras stop at 30 seconds as if there's no photograph to be made more than 30 seconds. So I don't really need to try the 900-second shutter speeds, and it shouldn't be limited to just 900 seconds, although I don't want to stand around outside in the cold for anything more than that. But I think that's great. I think all cameras should have that. In fact, now on, for all my reviews, I'm going to list in the missing section, those little gray dots that I use, any camera that only stops at 30 seconds. Hey, Len Whistler says, hello, Vancouver. Hello there. Thank you for writing there from Canada. Okay, Kai Monroe says he loves his Sigma 50 to 100, his D500, which is awesome for indoor sports shooting. That is cool. As I recall, that's a really fast zoom lens, too. I haven't played with it yet. Okay, Paul Connor says, no, the D780, yeah, because the pixels are different. Okay, let me try to get ahead here. Okay, Barry Efford says, opinion on Nikon D750. I started on Nikon FG. The D750 is fantastic. No, to go to the D780 from the D750, no, because you lose your built-in flash. The only reason I will consider switching from a D750 is if you have a lot of spare change and spare money, and you want to use higher ISOs all the time, which, to be honest, you probably shouldn't, because when I shoot seriously, I'm going to show some night shots I've been making lately. I shoot those in a tripod, and when I'm on a tripod, I'm at ISO 64 on my Z7. I'm at the lowest speed. I'm at ISO 50 on my A7R Mark IV, which is, what, 60 million pixels? I shoot that at ISO 50, which still gets a little bit grainy, to be honest. So I always use the lowest ISO. The highest ISOs are just for goofing around when you don't bring a tripod and you're shooting handheld. Again, it's Ken Rockwell live here from the golf course and the pool. I'm having a grand time. I hope you are too. And any questions, please just drop them in the comments. And I'm now about 15 minutes behind. Todd M. asks, what is the best landscape camera? It's whatever camera you've got with you, as the question always goes. Best landscape camera, personally, I shoot the Canon 5DSR, which is actually the same as the 5DS. It's the world's highest resolution digital single lens reflex camera. It gives me the Canon optimized colors, which I love. I far prefer them to Sony's colors for landscape shooting as JPEG. So the A7R Mark IV is wonderful, but I don't like the way the pictures look as much as I like what I get from my Canon. So yes, Canon 5DSR. And if you go to my website, kenrockwell.com, I even have a link over to a YouTube site, not YouTube, this is YouTube. I have a link over to an eBay site that has gray market Canon 5DSR. So depending on what country you're in and whether or not you're worried about having no support or service, you can save like $1,000 on those things. And I think I've talked to people who said they've actually gotten those and they were okay. But I use the Canon 5DSR. Canon has always been my favorite. Not always. Canon has been my favorite since the 5D Mark III came out about 2012. I shoot Nikon mostly for historical interest because I can use all my old lenses, or also the fact that I can get a 28-300 here. Which Canon's 28-300 is a beast. It's a giant metal beast. The 28-300 is the only lens I need for everything on my Nikons. Okay, best landscape camera. Jab Media, J-A-B Media. Oh, I hear people on the golf course. I gotta be quiet. He's a Nikon shooting looking for 20 plus. Oh, he's a Nikon shooter for 20 years. He's losing interest in his Nikon system due to lack of technology as compared to other competitors. Yes, me too. In fact, he's heading towards a Micro Four Thirds system. Any advice? You know, it's always a personal preference. The thing about cameras is they're all going to take the same pictures, but each brand makes very different looking pictures. Olympus has a look, Canon has a look, Fuji has a look, at least if you're shooting JPEGs. If you're shooting RAW, then the way the picture looks is half based on the camera, and the other half is based on what your software is you're opening your files with. So, by all means, you need to pick a camera system brand based on the look, and Micro Four Thirds is only, I believe, made by Panasonic and Olympus for the most part. Make sure you get the colors you want, and then, you know, it's all good. Let's see, I'm looking here. Let me get back to where I was. Oh, I've got a great question. Business side. Okay, Micro Four Thirds system, any advice? Yeah, it's Nikon. I would not get into Nikon today. I would get in, it depends on your preferences for colors. I would get in, again, I love Canon because the Canon company, yeah, Canon takes care of us too. Call 1-800-OK-Canon. In the United States, you get a live person in the United States, native English American speaker. And every time they pick up the phone, the first person who picks up that line at 1-800-OK-Canon knows the answer to my question. And as you can gather, by the time I call Canon, it's probably a pretty advanced question right off the top of their head. So I'd say go Canon. And they make everything you could want for the most part. Of course, depending on what you're doing specifically. Do I have thoughts? Okay, RJR has thoughts on a full frame lens like 300 PF or 500 PF on a DX body for bird and wildlife. Hey, those are great lenses. I normally don't like to mix formats, but for the ultra tels, obviously Nikon does not make any dedicated 500 millimeter ultra tels. I would say go for those. I was not happy with the autofocus performance of the 300 PF. I was not happy with the image stabilization performance, and it's made in China for a $2,000 lens. I have a problem with that, but I have no idea what country you're from. But here in America, I like to buy things made in the country where they're designed. Japanese cameras from Japan, thank you very much. But by all means, that's great. And DX body for bird and wildlife, that's a better idea because you get a longer effective lens. Okay, LJS, what's the best way to learn the business side of photography for someone who wants to earn extra income? Perfect question. If you go to kenrockwell.com, and I'm Ken Rockwell, this is kenrockwell.tv, and I'm live here. Search up my articles on how to go pro, how to become a professional photographer, and I go into explicit detail. The key is, if you want to do it for money, you become a business. You can't get a job as a photographer unless you're the one guy at the DMV office who takes the pictures, or maybe the guy who works at Walmart and does the family pictures in the studio. And those pay minimum wage. So you need to form your own small business. And so what's more important than your photography skills are your business skills. Can you market and sell yourself? Here in the United States, there's a thing called the Service Corps of Retired Executives, SCORE.org. Go take their local chapter's introduction class. These are businessmen and women who have done incredibly well, and they're not old. They're simply retired because they did so well they could retire. Go look at them. So the key to be functional in photography as a business is your business skills, which is all about marketing and self-promotion. And as you've seen, it doesn't have much to do with the quality of pictures you take or don't. Okay, let me try to move ahead here. It's now 52 minutes past the hour. And I'm backed up about 15, 20 minutes. Okay, question came in at 39 minutes past the hour. He wouldn't switch from the D750 to the D780. D780 doesn't have the battery grip. I agree with you, Paul, absolutely 100%. Mario Godovac says, do you think we'll see near future mirrorless camera system? Mirrorless camera system, Android operating system. Is that Android phones? Don't know. I would hopefully be Apple. Not kidding anybody with that green wall, Ken. I don't know what that means. There's no green wall here. Oh, you think this is a fake golf course? Actually, I would totally be the one to do that. I totally want to do green screen in my YouTube studio when I would use a backdrop of all the scenic pictures I've made. But no, this is actually live here from the golf course. Andrew, I kid you not, which is why I'm trying to be quiet here. Don't piss off the golfers. I can't say that on the air. Okay, glad to see you. Love his D3. Yes, Jim, I love my D3. My D3 is what I shoot all my product photos with. You see on my website. Thoughts on Olympus? I love Olympus. They're a leading company. They make microscopes and optics. They've been doing it forever. Honestly, I really was intrigued by their OM1 system back in the 70s. And the only reason I haven't covered them on my website is I just don't have the time. Look at all the stuff that came out this week from Nikon and Canon. I'm still not caught up. For instance, I just got my D780 and I'm like, yay, D780, let's go play and shoot this thing. And I love this thing. And then, you know, everything else came out from Nikon and Canon this week. So that's what we're doing there. Okay. Jerome 719 asks at 42 minutes past the hour, is it a deal breaker for Nikon not designing a battery grip for 780? Yes, for many that is a deal breaker. Absolutely 100%. Gerard Farid thinks I was dead. No, I'm not dead. You know, again, I'm a guy who has to shoot every day for a living. I'm not some YouTuber with like a staff of people that follow me around, but you guys who watch don't see the staff people following me around. So, you know, if you're talking about me just not having a regular video every Monday, like my son when he was doing YouTube, he's 11 years old now, you know, be all adamant, but like, you need to be on. No, I put stuff up when I feel like it. This for me is fun. It's relaxing, as opposed to shooting for a living all day. Okay, Gabriel Ferrer, which is more effective, in-body stabilization or lens stabilization? Oh, that's an excellent question, Gabrielle. Let me explain. In-body stabilization, I think the only people who do that is Sony. And the reason you find it in Nikon cameras is I believe the Nikon Z series uses the Sony sensors, which is why they have to use the XQD cards, because I believe Sony told them, if you want to buy our sensors, you're going to have to buy our XQD cards. Anyway, they're very different. For a normal lens, they work about the same. And that's great if you're shooting old manual focus lenses like I can put on my Nikon Z cameras, then that's great. If you're shooting long telephoto lenses, the in length, like 300 millimeters and longer, the in-lens stabilization can work better because the optics are such that it's more optimized for the fact that you have a very small amount of motion, means a big amount of motion on the sensor, such that using sensor shift stabilization with lenses of 300 millimeters and longer, depending on how well you hold it, the sensor simply runs out of range of motion that it can hit, so it won't work. But here's what most people don't realize. When you get to ultra-wide, say 20 millimeters and wider, give or take. The stabilization works flawlessly in the center because even for large amounts of motion, the image doesn't move much. So the cameras have got this down in the center of the image. And here's what nobody tells you. Sensor shift stabilization is awful for ultra-wide lenses in the corners because what happens is, you know how things get sucked out in the corners of, ooh, look at that 16:9, gets sucked out in the corners of an ultra-wide lens? Sensor shift stabilization can't compensate for that because the sensor is not made of rubber. For every micron of motion in the middle of the frame, you might have to move it 2 microns in the corner, but it doesn't. And so therefore, you'll see fuzziness in the corners that most of us, including myself, think, oh, the lens isn't sharp there. But no, it's the stabilization. Sensor shift stabilization can't do that in the corners with an ultra-wide lens. So personally, I prefer in-lens stabilization, but I certainly don't complain. Well, my Nikon Z lets me get stabilization for free with my old manual focus lenses. Okay, I'm looking here. Again, it's Ken Rockwell. It's 56 minutes past the hour. I'm live, responding to your comments here in the comment section, which I'm seeing on my iPhone screen as I'm shooting this live here on kenrockwell.com and kenrockwell.tv. Gabrielle asked, gee, I forget offhand if a D780 shoots 4K utilizing the whole sensor area. I look at my review at kenrockwell.com, look at the D780 review, look at my spec section. I should have that down there. Is the D780 just a full-frame D500 more or less? You know, not really. That's a little bit hard to say because the D500 claims to have a super hot rod or autofocus system, which the D780 does not. So, battery grip? No D780 battery grip. So if you want a battery grip, D750 is it. You know, Vegan Marshall says he doesn't know if I'm covered this, but how's the buffer on D780? Gee, I don't know. The great news is I looked for the specs. I don't see any spec for the buffer in the D780, and I don't shoot as promiscuously as that. So, in other words, I'm not shooting raw at like 8 frames per second. So I just don't know how the buffer in the D780 is. The good news is, with the speed of cards today is, nobody's really asked me buffers for years because the buffers are so big today that it's more than you could want. For instance, what I wonder is guys shooting raw. Okay, I use, what the software I use to sort my images is called Photo Mechanic, which has been a professional standard now for over 20 years, although I just got to it recently. The key is I can actually, on my card, I was shooting raw, which are 120 megabyte files on my A7R Mark IV yesterday. And I can go to those things lickety-split without even downloading them from the card using Photo Mechanic, actually looking at the card through a card reader, and then I can choose which I want to download. That works really well. But again, I think people who shoot raw files at high speed of sports are probably a little bit half nuts, so I can't speak to the buffer size in the D780. How's the live view and focusing on the D780? I haven't tried it. I don't do live view. I've never done live view. The only time I do live view on the back of a digital SLR is if I'm trying to set very precise focus for something that isn't working well through the regular viewfinder, in which case I'll zoom in, magnify, manual focus. So my D780, I've only had it a few days, and I'm just having a blast shooting it in the regular mode. Active D-lighting in videos, not just in cameras, JPEG. You know, I haven't tried shooting videos with D780. This video is coming to you today live from my battery-powered iPhone 11 Max Pro. Oh man, look where I am, Ken. Yeah, I like it out here. I'm loving it. We have a 4-day weekend, so I am out of town and loving it. The color science, yes, the color science on all the Nikons since 2007 has been exactly the same. The colors match, from what I can see, perfectly. I haven't actually done a deliberate thing, but when I set a Nikon camera up with picture controls to say vivid and +3 saturation and so forth, it doesn't matter for my original D300 and D3 from the late October, November 2007 they came out, to my newest D780, they appear to be the same. In other words, Nikon has a corporate color profile to which they're adjusting all their cameras. That's what I was talking about. Each brand has their own look. So yeah, the good news is if I shoot something on one camera from like even 12 years ago today, from Nikon and this newest cameras, they'll match from what I can see. Okay, these questions coming in 49 past the hour. Okay, Skip says, from D90 deciding 500, D50, or Z6, photo enthusiast. You know, I'd say, you typed D Delta 50, but I think you mean Z, Zulu 50. I would go Z50 just because it's going to be the most different for you, and it's going to be fun. Photo enthusiast, I'm not sure, that could be many different things, but I like the Z50. The Z50, for some reason, when I got that camera, I really enjoyed it. The Z7, Z6, I hate. Z50 was just so much fun, so tiny, and the price was right. It was a good buy. So I think buy. Another thing I should say here is I've always bought my stuff, well, not always, ever since the 1970s, I bought my stuff direct from New York City, Adorama and B&H, because back in the 70s, They had like a 7-day return policy. Today they're up to about 30 days. The key is you don't need to read my review. Just buy it from B&H or Adorama, or today also Amazon or Crutchfield. There's those links to Crutchfield on my website. Crutchfield in Virginia. I've been buying from them for stereo stuff since the 70s. Has now, I believe, a 60-day return policy, which means instead of just, worrying about it and reading all these reviews, just buy it and try it. If you love it, you're good. If you don't love it, you can send it back for a full cash refund. No dirty looks like at your local camera store. It probably sold you a used camera anyway, new price. Gordon's New York Z says 4 at 12:49, or 49 past the hour. What about the Z 24-200 lens? That came out last week. I haven't gotten to analyze it yet, much less get my hands on one yet. I was sad that it was only 24-200. At first, I thought it was 24-240 like Sony and Canon have. Nikon kind of gypped us, only going 24-200. But to be honest, that is going to be an awesome lens. That'll probably be the main lens I shoot on full-frame Nikon Zs. But I really would rather have a 28-300, which is what I'm shooting, and the only lens I've shot on my D780. Ralph? Okay, legal ID here. This is Ken Rockwell with KenRockwell.com at the hour. It's 4 o'clock in New York City and 1 o'clock on the West Coast. Coming to you today live from the golf course. Again, the noise you hear is the waterfall here at the pool. And I'm loving this. No one's come by to take my drink orders, and that's good. And no golfers, we're not annoying them. And again, you can see the long form review of anything I've spoken about at KenRockwell.com. And these videos are all live, well, not live, but they're all at KenRockwell.tv. I've been on the air now 50 minutes, and it's 1 minute past the hour. And what I'm doing here, you can't see me. I'm looking at comments live on my screen here. Okay, Ralph asks me at 50 minutes past last hour, he took the D4 lens to the Galapagos, 28-300, and hardly missed a shot with 2,000 frames. Exactly. I love my 28-300. It's super sharp. The images look great. My heart is Nikon, brain is Canon. Now, actually, I've been shooting Nikon forever. And about 2013, I upgraded to Canon just because Nikons have not updated any of the stuff I've been pestering them to update. And Canon's listed. And all those things I would put in my reviews saying it needs to do this, it needs to do that. They actually did update it. And yes, Canon has fantastic customer service. Nikon does not. Okay. Hey, D610, Nikon, B&H is a good deal. Go for it. As I said, I love B&H. I've been shopping from them since the 1970s. And if you hate it, you can send it back. You'll get your full cash back, and you won't get a dirty look. It'll just be all good to go. The great thing with B&H is they've been in business that long, just like Adorama, and just like Crutchfield, because they care about us. They actually care about us more than themselves, which is why they've been in business. Back in the 70s, I would go to New York. A lot of rip-off camera stores just trying to take your money. And hope you never come back. Well, B&H wants you to come back, which is why they one of the few camera stores that still thrive in New York City. Okay, David Johnson asks at 51 past last hour. He's been a Nikon fan for a while. It's still his old film camera. He's running a 7500. You worried about the future of the F-mount? No, I wouldn't be worried about the F-mount. Honestly, I moved away from Nikon because the F-mount cameras are fairly blah. For instance, I don't really buy any new F-mount lenses. I buy Canon mount lenses. So I'm not quite sure what your question is. Okay, Jeb Media says, thanks for asking. He's heading towards an Olympus and a Lumix, a full HV line, a micro four thirds lenses, dual IBIS. Okay, good. Again, the Japanese, the earlier question, the Japanese are adamant about their cameras. It's just insane the level of things they introduce. I mean, do we see anything innovative coming from China? No. Thailand? No. Russia? No. Germany? No. I mean, Sweden. Sweden's greatest cameras, sadly, are in their past. I love my Hasselblad system. Nothing much from them. But, yeah, the Japanese are crazy about this stuff. Am I a golfer? Sadly, no. I like watching the guys, and I respect the sanctity of the game, but there's nobody out there, and that's why I'm trying to keep my voice down. But no, sadly, I don't play golf. Although I have a set of clubs, and I'll go out and play if somebody's playing. Jeb Media says he's selling all of his Nikon. Okay, good. Good. Trying to stay current here with my comments. I'm about 10 minutes behind now. Maniac Bag says, what's my assessment of the Z system with a 3 to 5 year horizon on the mind compared to the EF EX mount? Okay, if we give Nikon 3 to 5 years, remembering that it took Sony about 5 years till they actually got a full set of serious lenses, so they had everything we needed with no holes. The A7 came out about 2013, and it took them until about just a couple of years ago until they actually got a full line of lenses out. I would say give Nikon a few years and they'll have a full line of lenses out. Full enough anyway, in their full-frame mirrorless system. Canon already has a full line of lenses out. Canon is totally on top of it. They've got the wide lens and normal lens. That's why I love Canon. So yeah, Nikon will get there. But they're not there yet. They're a smaller operation. Plus, I hate the way some of the ergonomics work on their cameras, so that's the way it is. Okay, I'm going through the comments here. This is Ken Rockwell again. I'm live. I'm looking at your comments in the comment section, and I'm responding to them live with my answers. Ostensibly talking about the D780, but you can ask me anything you want. Okay, okay, I'm now back at questions that came in at 56 minutes past the last hour. Hello from Germany. Gotta love Germany. He thanks me for my tip and buy the 180 2.8 AIS. He love it, yes. The 180 2.8 Nikon ED AIS is one of the world's sharpest lenses, and it's almost free to go out and buy one. Again, if you go to kenrockwell.com, just search it up. I have links to it on eBay. You'd be all set. Jeffrey Wright Photography asked me at 58 minutes past the last hour. Pentax, Olympus, Panasonic, and some Fujis have in-body stabilization as well. Yes, I'm sure they do, and as you've gathered, I haven't had the time to look at those other brands. Olympus has the best stabilization. I didn't know that. Stabilizer and body work together. Yeah, they probably do. People say, gee, Ken, why haven't I talked about Panasonic, Olympus? Again, these are fantastic brands. I just haven't had the time. You see, when I started my website, I shot large format for my serious landscape stuff. I shot Nikon as a goof, and that was about it. And then, everybody started asking me to write about all this stuff, and I can't say no. But personally, I've shot Nikon, I shoot Leica. If I'm shooting 35 millimeter, I wouldn't shoot 35 millimeter Nikon camera anymore because the lenses aren't as good as Leica's. And for SLR stuff, I shoot my Canon. And I can only talk about so much stuff. SL New York said at 58 minutes past, he's here about original brand lenses, but compared to Nikon against a new Tamron, yes. There's really no comparison. If it dies in 7 years, okay. Again, that's great. Again, I look longer term. I tend to stick to camera brand lenses because I'm always getting a new camera and want them to work together. But by all means, if you don't, Tamron guarantees their stuff for 7 years, and if 7 years worth of service of a great sharp lens is what you want, then everybody's happy. Go for it. And again, sometimes the Tamron lenses are inexpensive enough you could throw one or two away and still be ahead of the time. David Martin Graff asks, at 59 past the last hour, I heard about camera companies incorporating photography technology into Pico projectors, given Texas Instruments manufactured the DLP chipless laser DLP. That's a comment. I'm not sure if that's a question, so again, I have to get back on here. Gabriel Pro Photo says, hey, his question is, what's the life of a D750 and a D70200? That is an excellent question. How long do these cameras last? Honestly, my D40, which I bought new back in 2006, still works flawlessly. My Nikon D1, which someone gave to me, that was the world's first practical digital single lens reflex camera. It came out in 1999. He gave it to me. Still works just great. I've never been able to wear out a camera. My D3 has only about 70,000 shots in its shutter, which is hardly even broken in. What does wear out first is, what wears out is on my D40, this fake leather stuff has gotten sticky because of the kind of plastic they use. So my other older lenses, this rubbery plastic turns to goo because the plasticizing chemicals somehow stop doing whatever they're supposed to do, and the plastic turns back to goo. So the worst thing that happens is your lens turns to goo. I said the outside of your lens, you touch it, it gets sticky. Or the camera gets sticky. Or in the case of my D3, the batteries crap out. I can't say crap on TV. Batteries fail. And then you can buy replacement batteries at B&H, who has a house brand of Watson. And I use a Watson battery in my D1. Again, I don't really shoot my D1, but I take it out every once in a while and play with this to remind myself what it's like. But in terms of the actual cameras, they last forever. And anything made since about 2007, which was a D300 and the D3, gives you the same look today. And so you really don't need to buy new cameras unless there's something that you really need. Okay, I'm looking through my questions here. Okay, so the life of a D750 and D7200, really, it's not a matter of frame rates. You probably can get millions of shots on these cameras. It's a question of just hours of time. How many years does it take until the plastics turn to goo? Thoughts on Pentax? Again, Pentax is a fantastic long-term company. I just had the chance to apply, 150K shutter count. And again, even though the shutter is rated to like 150K, someone mentions here, David Collins, thank you very much. Well, I've read stories that there were Nikon D5s pro camera where they rated it to like 100,000 shots, but then somebody at Nikon service noticed one day that one camera just came in for its first service ever to have like 1.5 million shots on the shutter. So I don't know if these cameras ever really wear out. It's just a question of materials falling apart. Okay, David Martin Graff says he bought a 7500 with a 16-80. It's Nikon's only 4K DSLR with a pop-up flash. There you go, thank you. Carlos says he's shooting a D4S and a D500, but find the camera profiles and colors don't always match. I think a D5, Carlos mentioned something interesting. Now, I've always found that profiles match, but I'm not shooting them at the same time. It's just the shots I get with one camera look to me like that's my Nikon colors, and the shots I shoot a different day on a different Nikon camera, I'm getting the results I want. If I'm shooting at the same time, and if you're seeing a difference in those cases, obviously Carlos is looking more precisely than I am, then I think you would see the same differences between the cameras that you're mentioning versus the cameras that you're seeing. Okay, I'm going back to my questions here. Okay, see, there's golfers there. Okay. Carlos says he's shooting D4. Oh, you think the D5 and 5? I think the D5 and D500 would look as similar as the other cameras do. Okay. Maniac Bag says at 1 minute past the hour, it's now 10 minutes. Related to the last question, what do you think of the Nikon Z? Oh, hit something wrong here on my phone. Z lenses from whenever you've seen of them. The Z lenses, they're not made in Japan. They're offshore lenses. They feel crappy and dinky. They feel precise, but they're not dense. They feel plasticky because there's not much glass in them compared to plastic. Mostly plastic, very little metal. It's junky. It's like some of the Sony lenses. Metal on the outside for show, plastic on the inside to save them money. I'm not impressed. Third-party Z lenses appear. They will, and I don't know. The Z colors are different. The Z colors, to me, match the DSLRs. And why I hate the Zs? Well, I hate the Zs because of the ergonomics. Just look at my reviews, or there's even one here on YouTube. I thought, but some things just don't work well. And the things that don't work well for me are things like their setups. These U1 and U3 setups on my Z cameras, they don't recall properly. They don't recall everything about the setup, so they're a pain, which is why I prefer Canon mirrorless. What do I think about the D6? You know, I was excited, but it turns out D6 is simply the D5 with a different autofocus system. Again, read my review at kenrockwell.com/nikon/d6.htm. You can get the full results. Is a D5, you know, D3 is probably a better value now for sports shooters because my D3 shoots at 9 frames per second. The autofocus system is fantastic. It's got the same autofocus system. I mean, they all only see, digital single-lens reflexes only see this little spot in the middle of the frame. It might have 10 sensors or 5 sensors or 500 sensors, but the sensors are all in the middle of the frame. It's not like mirrorless can see all around. So I'd say if you're on a budget, I bought, but I returned my D4 and D5 because honestly, I prefer my D3 because it's better autofocus controls. So yes, by all means, unless you are at such a high competitive level that being just a little bit better than the next guy is going to make a sale for you or not, by all means, pay for the camera in the first, week of shooting. If you're a guy who pays more for his cameras than they make for you back in money, by all means, get an older series Pro cameras. Okay, Glenn Dirt 2 says he does landscape, air shows, sports, and weddings. Other than Canon, what would I recommend? Well, gee, what more than Canon do I need to recommend? I'm not, that's a very broad question. I'm not sure. And it's easy for me to say, well, landscape, landscape, I prefer Nikon and Canon colors. So I'd say go Nikon. Yeah, go Nikon. I'm sorry, that's a difficult question to answer because it's so broad, but it's a very important question. Shadow Persona asked at 3 minutes past the hour. Have I had my G 35mm f1.8 repaired? The AF went kaput. No, my 35 f1.8G that I bought the day it came out, and I love it, has worked just fine. My biggest concern is that it'll get gooey with the plastic. David Martin Graff asks at 3 minutes past the hour. Wasn't the proverbial 1980s photography gear to used to be Nikon? Well, no one used too many luggage bags, I don't recall. But yes, in the 1980s, Nikon ruled the roost. But it's not the 1980s anymore. Nikon has long since fallen behind, which is sad. Okay, John Gaspar. Yeah, well, B&H, of course, is closed on Saturdays. It's Shabbos. It's God's law. Okay. Excite says, using a Z6, looking forward to getting new Nikon Z24. Yes. The 24-200 is going to be a blast on the Z6. Okay, David Collins says, do I think the D700 still has the best colors of any Nikon? No, I've never thought that. I think it has the same colors as all modern Nikons. 7200 and D610 get close. I think David is there must be some sort of a fringe group that goes around thinking the D700 has the best colors. And there's always those side groups, but no, it has the same colors as far as I know. No battery grip on 780. I don't have a theory. I think they just forgot or just didn't get to it. It's kind of like, why don't I talk about Panasonic or Olympus very much? It's not conspiracy. It's just lack of time. Winslow McCurdy asks, at 5 minutes past the hour, how does a D780 directional pad compare to D750? He's talking about this little guy here. He had a much better feel versus D750. Well, I haven't thought about it. I didn't even notice the difference. It is a little wishy-washy. It is a little small. It doesn't click it's not that clicky. But to be honest, I never even noticed that until you asked. Okay, David says he had his first movie camera in 1985, Panasonic, for its VHS camcorder. Had a viewfinder almost the size of the mirrorless camera, the state of the art today. Yep, that's just it. The mirrorless cameras of today are basically the camcorders of yesterday, which is why people like Sony excel in these things. Heine says, and it's 6 minutes past the hour. Find Lightroom, only apply automatic corrections to certain lenses, otherwise lenses. Again, I don't use Lightroom, I use Photoshop and never apply automatic corrections later in software, but if you're shooting RAW, you probably have to. Okay, theory on no grip, 6 minutes past the hour. Jeb Media says, do I think the D6 is a disaster for Nikon? No. I think anytime they introduce something new, it's never a disaster. 2014, you know what I think? Okay, we're dissing on the D6 today. My biggest diss in the D6 is not just the D6, but the D5 and the D4 and everything else. It always makes me laugh when I see the reason all the pro sports shooters shoot Canon, or at least like 80% of them do, is Canon is always one model year ahead, version ahead of Nikon. It's sad that every time Canon announces their latest, like 1DX Mark II, about a week later, Nikon comes out with their D5 or D6, and it always has exactly the frame rate of the previous model of Canon. In other words, the Nikon's newest pro camera is always just about as good as Canon's previous camera. And it's really sad. It's like, so the D6, again, it came out and I was busting up at laughter. It's 14 frames per second, exactly what the 1DX Mark II does and has been doing for years. Canon comes out with the 1DX Mark III, and Nikon is exactly one generation behind. Hey, Ukraine! Ukraine is awesome. Ukraine sent me an awesome pair of headphones, of planar magnetic headphones, the Verum 1. Review on my website. I love those headphones, handmade in Ukraine. What is the best camera for his Carl's Eye ZF2 lens? ZF is F for Nikon, so the best camera is Nikon's single lens reflex or mirrorless cameras. That was a trick question. We all should know that. Jack Nicholas says, at 7 minutes past the hour, his Olympus has amazing stabilization, shoot blind and total darkness handheld. Yes. Oh gosh, now I gotta try an Olympus. Mobile phones eventually make full frames redundant, and we see medium format replace full frame. Well, you won't see any of those replaced. Admittedly, my phone has replaced a lot of what I shoot. I can shoot this iPhone now. Look at my review of the iPhone 11 Max. Again, this is Ken Rockwell with kenrockwell.com, the website, and I'm live here today on kenrockwell.tv. If you go to my website, look at my iPhone 11 Pro Max review, and I have sample images that I made while I was asleep in moonlight. I just held my phone over my head in my bed, half asleep, held it, and made a shot of the moonlight shining into my bedroom. It does awesome. So yes, littler cameras have always replaced. Photography is nearly 200 years old now, and the smaller, more convenient cameras have always displaced the older, clumsier cameras, much like 4x5 replaced 8x10, and 2.25 replaced 4x5, and then 35 replaced 2.25, because even though the quality was crappier, the newer cameras were good enough, and the convenience let us take other pictures. Okay, Sub asks, if 8 past the hour here, here's a question about film cameras. Which Nikon camera is the quietest shutter? Oh gosh, I love this question because I don't know the answer. You know what's a really quiet shutter? Something like a Nikon FE. When you use that self-timer, it flips the mirror up automatically at the beginning of the I wouldn't call it service, at the beginning of the cycle. And so then 10 seconds later, the shutter goes off, and just the quietest little click of solely the focal plane shutter. But other than that, I don't really have an opinion. I do know that the F4, for instance, which has its silent mode, that was the first camera to have that mode, it's still a noisy camera. How do I fix the plastic discoloring on the lens ring? I don't. I just take a Q-tip, a dry Q-tip, and try scrubbing off that white stuff. Paul Crowder asks, is the Nikon D850 last the Series F mount camera? I doubt it. To be honest, the D780 is a newer Series F mount camera. And I remember when Nikon introduced the F as in film 6 back in 2003, I thought they had to be kidding, but they're still producing that. You can still buy all the brand new F6s you want. So I think the F mount will be like a cockroach. It's been around for a while. I don't see the F mount going away anytime soon. Although to be honest, I would not start a new F mount system today. I would go with Canon. David Collins, does the inbuilt clock battery ever die? I have never seen it die. None of my digital cameras has ever had a clock battery die. They're rated to go for, 10 years, but I've never had one die. Gabriel says, thanks for answering, Ken. You're the best. Greetings from Brazil. Oh, man, love your guys' steaks. Have not been to Brazil. Thank you very much. Josh, let's see. You guys see me okay? I hope so. Okay. Josh Chiodo says, what's my opinion? Nikon F6. I love the F6. I own an F6. The reason everybody should own an F6 is just it feels so good in your hand. I don't think any other camera has molded itself so well. When you hold the F6, it just feels fantastic. And then the sound the shutter makes when it goes off is so smooth and so clean. When the F6 came out, we laughed at it a little bit. We're like, number one, why is Nikon introducing a film camera? And number two, it's clearly slower and wimpier than an F5, so it's not a pro camera. So what is it? Nikon was clairvoyant, or prescient, I should say. Nikon back then realized that 35mm was not going to be a mainstream pro format anymore. In fact, it wasn't even in 2003. They built a camera for rich guys who appreciate finer things. The F6 is a fantastic camera for people who appreciate well-made cameras and want to shoot 35mm film the way we shoot it today, where we're not shooting it at 15 frames per second for sports. We're shooting it for nature, for landscape, and purely for the fun of it. I mean, tons of pros shoot film. I mean, I still shoot film. We do it for fun. People aren't paying us to do it. We do it because it brings us back to what brought us into this, not profession, but brought us into this art form in the first place. Because it makes us stop and have to concentrate because we're paying for every shot. So by all means, that is why the F6 was created. On the other hand, if you are shooting film, we're probably not shooting sports. You're probably shooting nature, landscape, abstract, nightscapes, all these things. Get a Leica M rangefinder camera, because the Leica M lenses are so much better than any of the Nikon single lens reflex camera lenses. Now, when you're getting your scans back, the scans from Nikon almost look like they're broken, except the grain is perfectly sharp, but the images are kind of fuzzy in the corners. The Leica lenses are really that much sharper than the Nikon when you're shooting 35mm film. So I'd say if you're thinking about shooting film, get a Leica M3, send it out, get it overhauled, and that's the hard part, and then you should be good to go. So I'm getting excited here. We're talking about the artwork. I'm about 11 minutes behind. Great broadcast. Thank you, Jack Nicholas. Favorite composers? You mean like Bach, Brahms, Beethoven, Mozart, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky? Or, Mahler 7th. Okay. Yeah, be honest, I will tell you that I'm never been that much fan of a Mahler. It's just too complicated for me. I don't get it. But Mozart and Bach are all about simplicity. I'm just stretching here. I've been sitting here for like an hour and a half. Okay, let's get back to photography. Jeffrey Wright asks, oh yes, the terrible rubbery goo. You tell I've been on the air for a little over an hour here. I'm getting punchy. Mother's brand, back to black. I'm gonna try to, can I do this? Oh, I just made a screenshot of that comment. Trims for cars, works great for cleaning it up. Oh wow, I've never found a selection. Jeffrey Wright, if that works great. I've had people try to sell me expensive exotic cars, and even the cars had exotic sticky dashboards. I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. 90% isopropyl alcohol and microfiber. No way. I've got that sitting at home. I'm going to try that too. It sounds like it's going to be doomsday for the microfiber. It's going to get attached to my camera permanently. Okay. Mehdi says, I used to work with a guy named Mehdi. Ken, can you tell me how close is D780 autofocus and 3D tracking compared to 3D? Oh, gee, I don't know. When you say how close is, you mean how similar are they? Be honest, the thing about the pro cameras like a D3 that you can't ever get from specs is that everything just works faster. And there's no spec for how fast everything just works. The D3 tracking, it does facial recognition. I think D780 does that straight through the viewfinder. Also, the great thing is the viewfinder of the D3, like a good pro camera, are not black LED boxes that cover your subject. They're additive LED light-emitting diode, little red things that pop up that don't get in the way, so you can actually see people's expressions through there. Hi, Ken. Hi, Seth. Hey, thank you. Hey, the stream is going great if anybody's actually watching it. I'm on a blast here. I'm just not sure what's going to happen. I have to get up and take a break or go get some more water. If I was smart, next time I'll bring a couple of waters here, because I don't want to break my stream. If I'm going to scan oh, you know what I need to do? I need to get a little sign that says intermission. So if I need to get up and take a break, I just put intermission card up here. Mike Eubank. So I'm going to scan negatives with the DSLR. How would you set up? Oh, gosh, I would not want to do that. Again, I've been shooting since before scanners. I hate scanning. Today, I sent my film out to a lab. I use North Coast Photo Service, NCPS, we call them locally. North Coast Photo Services.com. I forget, go to my KenRockwell.com website and just click on links, click on film labs. They work from all over the world. I just have them scan everything as it's developed. But to scan negatives with the DSLR, to answer your question precisely, Mike Eubank asks, simple, I get a macro setup. You get a macro focusing rail, which is your camera's here, and there's a bellows, and there's a frame underneath, so you can actually move your macro lens. And you could use like a 55 2.8 manual focus or 55 f4 manual focus macro lens, and also has a slide copying attachment. And you put your film in there, And then you could do any magnification. You could zoom in a negative. And this way, everything's locked in. It's square. And that's what it is. I'm not sure what they call it today. People really haven't bought these things since the 70s, and people used to actually copy film by getting one of these crazy setups. And dude, let me see if I can check my battery. No, I can't check my battery. Okay, I think we're doing great here. Okay, let's see if I can go back here. Again, this is Ken Rockwell with kenrockwell.tv and kenrockwell.com. Answering your questions live here from the comments section. It is now 25 minutes past the hour. That makes it 4:25 in New York City. 1:25 United States West Coast. Matthew Saville asks, it's 17 minutes past the hour. Says, if I shoot weddings, air shows, okay, landscapes, just buy 2 cameras for weddings. You need a backup, but also those are really diverse. Oh, okay, he's making a suggestion here. Thank you. Oh, Dubai. I have not been to Dubai yet. Everybody, gosh, those who haven't been to Dubai, this is mythical city with all these incredible luxurious things and guys driving around in gold-painted Audis and so forth. Does a D780 handle noise better than a D750? Asked Daniel Featherstone. I don't know, but I do know it looks fantastic at super high ISO, so I would say probably yes. Does a D780 focus feel slightly snappier than a D810? I don't know. I haven't felt any difference. Am I in New York City today? Michael? No, not today. David says, thank you for the Q&A session. Hey, thank you guys for watching. I mean, I should always say thank you guys for reading my website. Thank you guys for watching these crazy live things, which I think is fun. Read my camera reviews. Okay, you are very welcome. Thanks for my response, Mehdi. Thank you for asking. Oh, am I all caught up here? Oh, I am. Okay, Veins 25 Veins says, hey, Ken. Again, you have to excuse me. I'm reading tiny little text here a long distance away on my phone. Okay, he asked me, he has an old D800E, and the autofocus is off. Gee, I never noticed that being off. Looking for a good camera mechanic. Oh, okay. Good camera mechanic, if it's a reasonably current, and I would call that, well, it's not current, but the point is anything made within the past like 7 years or so, I would send straight back to the manufacturer. So for the D800E, I would send it back into Nikon, let them have their way with it. The problem is if it's a hard failure, Nikon will definitely repair it. Now clean it, it'll come back looking great. The problem is if it's something subtle. If it's a matter of your focus is always off by ½ an inch, then no camera company really repairs that stuff well because it's under their radar. They can't see the defect. They can't change it out. They can't really say something's wrong with it. It's more of a judgment call. And then that's iffy. Canon has always been good, but gee, when I've sent stuff to Canon, it's because I've like cracked my frame. So by all means, I would send that Nikon D800 with your autofocus problem to Nikon and see what happens. Just know that, gosh, I've had Nikon charging for things and not repair the camera, saying it was, part of a memory card or something. But by all means, send it to Nikon and see what happens. Again, I don't know what country you're in, and Nikon service facilities can certainly vary from around there. Yes, the AF sensor is on the bottom of the D800. Yes, all digital SLRs have their AF sensor at the bottom of the camera. People don't realize that the AF sensor is in a different physical location, connected by mirrors, connected by crazy mechanical linkages, which is why stuff gets off and why mirrorless has an advantage that way, because the autofocus is right at the sensor. There's no possibility of a mechanical difference there. Hero Shot says, greetings, Sir Rockwell. Thank you. A question, should I trade my Z50 for a 5D Mark III? Oh, gee, that's a personal question. It's like, should you trade your girlfriend for like the one that doesn't sound right, but it's a personal question, much like that would be. The Z50, a 5D Mark III, well, they're totally different cameras. It's like, should you trade your motorcycle for a lawnmower? That sounds silly, but the Z50 is mirrorless, 5D Mark III. Personally, I love the 5D Mark III for serious stuff. Okay, trying to answer your question. If all I did was shot landscapes like pretty trees, Yosemite, beautiful models, automobiles, and so forth, I would, for serious stuff, I would shoot the 5D Mark III. If I was just going on vacation and wanted a great little camera to keep around my neck for everything I do, then I would shoot the Z50. The Z50 is a super fun walk-around camera. You see, that's not my hair there. That's a palm tree. The Z50 is a fun walk-around camera. 5D Mark III is a serious camera for things you pay more attention to, if that helps answer your question. Michael Beer asks, he has a Z50 with the kit lens. Love mine. Should he buy the lens to go with? That's an excellent question. So if you have the Z50 with the kit lens, you have the 16-50, which is a fantastic lens, and it's about this long. The real answer to your question is that the only other lens you'd want to get for the Z50 is the 50-250 telephoto. And the answer to that question simply is, do you ever shoot at the 50mm end of the 16-50 and get stuck at the zoom? For instance, 28-300, if every shot you make is banging off that 300 and you wish you had more, then by all means, get the 50-250, which is an inexpensive lens. And other than that, if 50 millimeters is long enough, then call it quits. Beautiful background. Thank you, summer 2015. Yes, I'm impressed. Again, my apologies. As I said before, I don't have a sec for video, guys, so I don't have extra lighting on my face. I'm just out here in the backyard. I tried to hit the sun off my face so I don't get sunburns out here. And just trying to keep things, and of course, I'm in shadow. My apologies for that, but I don't have somebody else to do lighting to light me up. So sorry about the crappy video, but you get what you get. It's Mac Young from Australia. Bushfires are out now. Oh, thank goodness. Funny thing about news is it's when things are bad, it's all of the news, and when things are good, kind of like there were droughts in Texas, I don't know, 10 years ago. And as a friend of mine from Texas says, oh yeah, the droughts are over, now we have floods, but that doesn't hit the news. 28 inches of rain in the last 10 days. Oh, thank goodness. The whole world is all feeling sad for Australia with those fires. Real asks, quick camera question. He's enjoying my EOS R. What's the best macro lens for the R? I forget. Look at my website, kenrockwell.com, and just click on reviews. As I recall, Nikon makes a 35 millimeter macro lens. It goes straight to, I forget, 1:1 or 1:2, native to the EOS R system, or maybe it was an EF lens, and it had a built-in little tiny ring light. It was really brilliant. So I'd say, look what Canon has. Oh, also, too, I have another page called Best Macro Lenses. You can just Google Best Macro Lenses, probably get to that, but go to kenrockwell.com, look at my Best Macro Lenses page, and click on the Canon link, and you'll see that. Hero shots. This is awesome. Thanks, team. Looking to get more serious with photography, studio, and weddings. Oh my gosh, that is serious. Had offered a table, just needed some expert input. Thanks. When it comes to photography, your camera really never matters. I shoot half my stuff on an iPhone today because it looks great. It's just when I need to zoom in or zoom out or make exposures under moonlight and so forth. Never worry too much about your equipment. The equipment is the least of anyone's worries, or should be. Now, the world comes to, I've always talked about, an article I haven't written yet, maybe I should do a YouTube of it, is do you want a nice camera or do you want nice pictures? Now, we have a lot of different people in this world. There's a lot of guys that like nice stuff. I mean, everybody likes nice stuff. I mean, neighbors, have got their Ferraris and their Maseratis and Lamborghinis and classic 1930s Mercedes or whatever they have. Those are guys that like nice stuff. Those are the guys with all their Leicas and will shut up about how great their cameras are and how you should get a Leica like them too, because they always like to justify their expenditures on these cameras by getting you to do it too. There's the people who like nice pictures, who shoot with their iPhone and probably take better pictures than the guy with the Leica does because they actually think about their picture. So in the case of getting serious or going professional, whatever camera you've already got is probably all you need. I don't know how many times our family has hired a professional photographer to shoot portraits for us. They show up with a crummy camera that I would never buy. They show up with like an old, ratty Tamron Zoom stuck on their DX camera from like 10 years ago. And guess what? They're earning a very happy living with that. So the cameras, the real pros, well, it depends, real pros. There's so many different kinds of real pros, I should say. The guys who don't do it full time, but the guys who have a real job and shoot everything else on the weekends, they've probably got a crappy camera, because if they're trying to make money doing it, buying cameras isn't making money. It's sending money away to Japan. So those are broad questions. Here we go. Hero Shots suggests to our other caller in, the 35 1.8 RF is macro like for $450. Yeah, RF. Okay, yeah, so that was the RF lens. Take a look at it. That is an awesome lens because it works well for normal things as well as doubling as a macro. It's kind of one of those secret little magical things Canon made. Another reason I'm more of a fan for Canon for mirrorless than Nikon, because Canon's making awesome stuff that's innovative, and Nikon's making really boring stuff for mirrorless. Okay, NC asks, is the D780 autofocus speed and accuracy different from the D6, D7? Absolutely, even with the updated firmware. I think Nikon will update firmware again. Okay, I am not happy with my Z7 and Z6 autofocus performance. It's kind of crappy. It usually focuses, if it's focused on the background and I put something in the foreground, it will ignore that. That's definitely going to be improved upon, and maybe it has. I have little tolerance for firmware updates. When I get something in my hand with something I have to shoot today, the only thing that matters to me is shooting today, not firmware that might come out in the future. So, and also too, because I have to shoot every day for a living, I don't have the time to update firmware like people who work in offices might. So honestly, firmware updates don't mean much to me. You need to perform and deliver your camera today. As what was that cartoon? And Popeye pay you on Tuesday for a hamburger today? Well, I need the hamburger today, and firmware on Tuesday doesn't help me. So I don't know. So by all means, Nikon's digital single lens reflexes have fantastic autofocus. Z67 has, I think, crappy autofocus. And yes, Nikon will always update the firmware, at least for that current camera. How do the weather seals of the D780 and D6? I don't know. To be honest, when the weather gets crappy, I get the heck out of there. I mean, I get under my umbrella, and so my cameras never get that dirty. The problem I have is these little things, I call these crappy flaps. Here's your flaps, and there's crappy plastic. And it's really sloppy that every time I have to do something, I have to open these little flaps. Are they weather sealed? I don't know. This here has a little bit of, does it have a little bit of foam in the sides? I don't know, you guys can see it. Hopefully on my website, I put these ultra detailed photos for you guys to look at. Let's see, look at the car door. What's the car door doing? Yeah, there's a little bit of a gasket here. But to be honest, this thing's, it's not going underwater. So honestly, I have not tried it out. As I say, I am less weather sealed than others because at my stage, if it's not fun, why do it? And I think this is what the Ben & Jerry's guy said in some interview. So I don't know about the weather seals because I don't remember the weather seals of the 750. I'm sorry, I'm not the right guy to ask for that. Okay, David Johnson asks, have I tried the 1680 f2.8 VR? Yes, I have. That's the review on my website. It's been quite a few years. It was back when it first came out. But go to kenrockwell.com, my website. You're watching this today on kenrockwell.tv. And just search for that. And you just use the search box and just search for the 16 to 80. You can see exactly what I thought about it back when it first came out, every explicit detail. He'd like to replace his 18 to 135 he's had since the D80. He has a 70 300 VR to cover the longer telephoto range. Any other suggestions? You know, as I recall, that 16 to 80 is more of a premium lens. It's relatively fast and relatively expensive. And yes, it was relatively excellent. It was also rather heavy. To be honest, for DX, I'll admit, I love my little 18 to 55 AFP, as in step per motor. It's tiny, it's ultra sharp, it's weightless, it focuses ultra fast. And so, you know, they're all good. And that's the thing about Nikon too, is we have fun of not having much available in mirrorless. There's single lens reflex line, there's so many lenses, they all work great. It's really, they make so many different kinds of lenses because there's so many different kinds of people who want different kinds of things. Life and Death suggests Goof Off and Gooby Gun also take off the sticky plastic. Wow, because last time I asked, everybody said none of these things worked. I'm making a screenshot of that, which is a latent defect in the plastic. It wasn't cured properly and the plasticizers leak out. PVC slide pages, uh-oh. Uh-oh. Gee, I have my entire life's work in PVC slide pages and some of that I haven't checked in a while. Have I ever visited Nikon? No, my apologies. I've never visited Japan. Much the same reason I've never talked about some of my, some of the other brands. I just haven't had the time. The thought of spending 24 hours on an airplane trying to get off to the Orient just doesn't seem like fun when I go off to Europe or Hawaii or someplace, you know, for a fraction of that amount of travel. Again, this is Ken Rockwell of kenrockwell.com coming to you live here on kenrockwell.tv. Out here by the golf course, and I don't see any golfers here. I'm trying to keep it quiet. There's a palm tree above my head. I'm answering all of your questions that come through in the comment section live, ostensibly talking about the D780, but anything you've got as a question is open season. Nice thing about this format is I can talk about things that I just haven't gotten around to talking about on my website because the website requires, I don't know, much more precise. I can make a mistake here and not have to correct it. To write stuff on my website can take a long time. So any questions or comments you have, just drop it in the comment section and I will answer it live. Ostensibly, we're talking about the D780, which is a great camera. I love it because it's the first full-frame digital single lens reflex or film camera. Well, it's not a film camera, but the first thing Nikon's done in film, first new thing that Nikon has done in full frame for over 2 years. The D850 came out over 2.5 years ago. And so I am having a blast. To see the full review of the D780, this isn't the place, and YouTube isn't the place for that yet either. Look at my comments below, and I have a link to my D780 written review where I have sample images. And that review is always a definitive resource. I update those things on a daily basis. YouTube videos, once they go up, you can't edit the video. You can crop them out on, crop out the end, crop out the beginning from YouTube. But really, YouTube videos I have are not, nobody's YouTube videos are really kept current. You can't edit the video, you have to post new ones. And I will also admit too, that on the YouTube, I have original D780 video, which is my initial first thoughts before I got one of my hot little hands. I have taking the box apart, opening up, seeing what you get, seeing what the materials are. That's my D780 first look video. D780 review, I don't have one on YouTube yet. The way it works is I will do one explicitly at kenrockwell.com and in writing. That's the formal review, which is always updated and has explicit photos of the product and sample images and tests and measurements. And once that's all finally buttoned down, then I'll make a YouTube video for you folks who'd rather watch it on video. Let me check my comments here. Michael Beer asks, what do I think is the best price? Quality camera Nikon made or makes? Well, if we say Nikon made, then we have the entire history of Nikon, so I'll pass on that. I think the best price quality camera has been the D750, especially right before Christmas, was about $1,200 before the D780 came out. that for a year I've been selling around $1,500 and still sells for $1,500 today. It's a great camera. It has great ergonomics, great image quality. So I would say the D750 is Nikon's best deal today. On the other hand, I keep picking my nose like this. It's not, should I do this? Anyway, the other great bargains are the lowest model camera, the D3500, which I regularly see. And check my website, check the news section of my website. I regularly see deals for about $400 of the D3500 offered with the basic lens and maybe some other stuff, maybe another lens for like less than $400. The D3500 takes the same pictures as every other Nikon. D3500 is higher resolution than the D5 or the D6 or the D3 or the D4 or any of their professional cameras, so it makes better quality pictures. Nikon won't tell you that, but it's got higher resolution. Take a look at my, I think it's my D3200 or D3300 review. I took my little D35, whatever 100 it was, to the Bahamas and made some awesome photographs with it. Love that camera. So actually, dollar for dollar, I'd say whatever their base model, the D3500, in terms of a new camera. And that is such a deal that I don't think if you even could find an older D3400, D3300, D3200, that would even be a better deal. So yeah, the best deal is that lowest end camera. There's nothing wrong with it. The screen doesn't flip around, but the picture quality is the same as their newest and hottest cameras. Thanks, that is an excellent question. Okay, Paranormal Poison says he wants to thank me for all my reviews and information on my website. You have helped tremendously. Thank you for thanking me. I'm glad you guys enjoy it, because that's what I do it. You know, it's funny. This is funny live. You guys are really good, too, because you don't have any, there's nobody like me watching this channel that would send me some embarrassing thing to read that when I would, no, I shouldn't even, I'm so bad. Well, that's why I like YouTube. Again, I was on television back when I was in high school and worked in Hollywood, so we never could really fool around. But with YouTube here, I probably can't even use a potty language word and probably wouldn't get kicked off. Anyway, Francisco asks, if I only shoot one camera, film or digital, for the rest of my life, what would I shoot? You know, iPhone. Give me an iPhone. I mean, the iPhone not only takes great-looking pictures under any quality light, it gets the best picture with the least amount of fiddling in every given situation, but it actually lets me edit it and forward it and publish it. But if you want to restrict that to, you know, what people call serious cameras, you actually have to, you know, what's the definition of a serious camera? Is that a camera that only takes pictures and can't do anything else useful, like make phone calls? or send them to your friends? Yeah, all these cameras have Wi-Fi today, but it doesn't do anything useful except talk to the crappy little apps, which get it to the phone to do what you could have done half an hour ago if you just shot it on the phone in the first place. Is it so bad that I'm so honest and sponsor myself doing all this stuff? Not in anybody's pocket, but anyway. You know, the camera I've been using for the past, 5 years now is my 5 DSLR Canon. I love that camera. That's a serious camera. Or D852 is an awesome camera. But, you know, probably overall, iPhone. Narwhal. Oh, use D4 for $1,000? Are those down to $1,000 now? Okay, best deal. Pretty good deal. Already got some of them. That's a great deal. I guess the D3 probably don't need to go much less than that. I mean, I like my D3 because it has direct autofocus controls. But the back of my D3, like as if this is not my D3, but the back of my D3, I can go from all the different autofocus area modes, like from single area to auto area to all area to group to center. There's one switch for that, and also the AF, the AFC, AFS, and manual focus is another switch, and they have direct access to those functions. I don't have to push a button and spin another knob while I take my eye away from the frame, which is what they did in the D4. And they did that in the D4 because, honestly, they wanted to use those buttons for other things, specifically video. Okay, LJS, with the mirrorless cameras in demand, does that mean Canon and Nikon DSLRs will be cheaper? No, I don't think so. In fact, as history has shown us, if DSLRs become weird and fringe element that fewer people are buying, they don't get cheaper. The used ones get cheaper, but the new ones will get more expensive, kind of like film. Back in the old days, I mean, film sold for about $5 a roll, 36 exposure roll, sold for about $5 a roll. And it just went down in actual dollars, even as inflation went up. I used to pay $5 for a roll of Kodachrome back in the 1980s and 1970s. And that was including processing for $5. And then as time went on, 1980, I changed to Fuji Velvia. And that sold for about $5 a roll. Eventually, I started buying it down to about $3 a roll, back when it's all we shot. Back, remember the days of film, late 1990s when it peaked. You know, you didn't just buy 2 rolls and think, oh, I'm really going to go all out. I'm going to buy 3 rolls and shoot them. No, I'd shoot like 10 rolls a day, and I wasn't even that serious back then because that's all we shot. We didn't have an iPhone to take pictures. We shot everything on film. And then today, I think last I looked, the new roll of Velvia is about, gee, is it $10 or $15? So yeah, that's what's going to happen. Now, luckily, I've got a freezer full of it. If anybody needs any Velvia, I've even got 220 Velvia. But no, DSLRs will not get cheaper. If anything, I think they'll get more expensive. David Johnson says, thanks for the answer on the 16 to 80. Thanks. I missed on the first glance on your site. Oh, thanks for asking again. I can't remember what's on my site. That's why I'm glad that I have a search box, and my search box on my site works pretty well. It's powered by Google. Although there's a lot of ads on it. I have to work on that. UXXV says, hey, Ken, thanks for all the info over the years. Been a reader since D700 launched. Oh, love it. I always wanted to keep a D700. I sent mine back, but oh, that was one of their, I don't know, I think. Discontinued Nikon One system is asked. My opinion is, how can I see this? It's discontinued because it was crap. I can't say crap on the, oh, no, I didn't say that. Anyway, go to my website, kenrockwell.com, search for Nikon One. You'll see my page on thoughts on Nikon One system, which was, my thought was it was such a tiny sensor, who cared? Kind of like APS-C and Pronea. And there's even a review of Pronea cameras on our website. And stories about the legitimate APS-C system, which stands for Advanced Photo System or Amateur Photo System, which was a scam. And I explained that all on my website. So that's my thought on Nikon what? Jay Perry. Gee, not Jay Perry, formerly of TRW that I used to work with. Shoots weddings, events, and wildlife. Should I buy his 500, 850? You know, weddings, I'm thinking 850. Events, I'm thinking 850. Wildlife, I'm thinking 500 because wildlife is far away. You know what I'm also thinking? I'm thinking weddings and events. You know, the Fuji X100 series, any of them, is fun. People look wonderful. I mean, they expect you to have a big camera, but an X100V has a fixed 35mm equivalent lens, but for groups and events, that's what I grab. The built-in flash works great for fill, and then you can get by with the 500. So that's a tough one. You know, you usually want to have two cameras, you know, one on each side for whatever, but I hope that helps. I would say 850 for weddings, events, and wildlife. I'd say 500, but I don't know if that's the answer you wanted. The good news is, whichever camera you get, you're going to get great pictures with. Those are both state-of-the-art cameras. It's a question of what do you feel like schlepping around. Noaro says he bought a used D4 as a backup that was completely overhauled, shutter aperture rubber for $900 a couple of months back, so pretty low nowadays. Good deal. Do I have concerns about Nikon's financial shape? No, I don't. The thing about Nikon is it's not financial shape. I don't read their 10Ks or their stock offerings. Besides, they're Japanese, so I wouldn't even know how to read those. Yes, they're shrinking. They're taking resources away from the photography segment and putting it into medical imaging and other things. But the key is they're never going to go away. I don't foresee that. They've been around over 100 years, and they came from other countries. They've come from other companies over 100 years ago that merged to form the current Nikon. So they will simply get smaller. I would have no worries about them being able to service their products or whatnot. I think they're going to be going far ahead into the future. For instance, Minolta. When Minolta went away, they didn't really go away. Minolta sold their camera division to Sony. Minolta's still making copying machines. And for service, they don't dump their customers. Although Nikon might like to. But what Nikon does, or say what the other company did, Minolta, is when they were bought out by Sony, they had third-party people repairing the stuff if it wasn't repaired by Sony. Same thing for Contax. When Contax went away, there are third parties who still repair the Contax cameras. So I wouldn't worry about that. In fact, the biggest concern about Nikon's financial status is the fact that they're not introducing much equipment. The lens selection for the Z system is negligible. It's really incomplete. Again, I go with Canon, who has a great stuff. Is there going to be a Z8? Of course there's going to be a Z8. Nikon's not going away anytime soon. The question is, what is it going to do and when? Thought back. Is a well-cared-for D750 a good buy in 2020? Yes, although a brand new 750 is also a good buy in 2020. My favorite compact fixed lens camera. Well, if it's a fixed lens camera for digital, it's any of the Fuji X100 series, probably my X100F. So there's your answer. Okay, what's my workaround? The D780 autofocus area from single point to multi-point that Nikon have changed from the system of the D500, D780 AF. Well, let's see. Now, this is not fun for you guys because, if I was an actual YouTuber, I would now pick up this camera and inset into your screen would be the viewfinder that I'm going to look through here. Now, I think what he's saying is when I go to single point, in fact, we're going to find it live here because when I change the autofocus system, what he's saying is, it goes group 3D, D21. Okay, I haven't even played with that yet. This camera's so new. But tell you what I'm going to do. D51, D21, auto. Let's go through our menu system here. Can I do this live on television? How do I do it live and I can still look at it? No, because it's mirror image if I do it here. Okay, you guys have to trust me. Okay, I'm looking at my menu system. Let me see. The question is, the question you're asking is, can I limit the amount of selections in autofocus? I know I can on my Canon cameras. I can limit how many selections there are. So the only two selections I use is either auto area autofocus, where it just selects the area by magic, and then and only then, if it doesn't automatically select what I want, then I'll force it into single point autofocus and put that point where I want it. And everything else I don't use. And of course, we're all different. Let me see if I have a selection for that. Focus points used all, share points AF activation. Ah, maybe there is not a menu option for that, ostensibly. I like that word, don't I? Focus tracking with lock on. Focus points used. No. You know, I don't see that as an option, which I'm used to on my Canons that I love, is I can actually remove from the multitude of autofocus options. I can just select that appear on the menu system, just a few of them. I don't see that here. Okay, we have AFSC, priority selection, focus tracking, 3D tracking, auto area AF, focus points used, store points by orientation, AF activation. Okay, that controls what activates the autofocus system. And what I'm looking for is, can I limit the selections? Focus point wraparound, focus point options. Oh, focus point illumination, manual focus mode, dynamic AF area assist. Okay, that's not it. No, then I don't see that. You know, again, that's why I shoot Canon. That's what I would say. So my workaround is I haven't found a workaround yet, but give me a break. I only got my D780 maybe on Tuesday or so, which is why I'm so excited about doing a little live broadcast today as I'm goofing off here in the afternoon. Hey, Heart Ponder. Gee, greetings from Palm Desert. I know Palm Desert. I'm not in Palm Desert right now, but I'm not far. Let's see. Germeister Doodlebug ask, why so much attention on the latest photo gear when most of us already have gear that exceeds our abilities? Why? Because everybody else keeps asking me, what do I think about the new blankety blank? Again, if I was left alone, I'd still be shooting my view camera for nature and landscape, and digital was just for goofs, because, you know, you can take a picture and see it right then and there, kind of like a Polaroid. That's why. And ultimately, the reason that the attention is trumped up is because the camera makers, foreign makers, will spend billions of dollars trying to get people excited about stuff that they don't need. And also, too, they have to have new stuff, because if you don't have new stuff, you become like some communist country. Gosh, it's so sad. Communism's awful. I've been to the former communist countries. And to see West Germany versus East Germany back in like about 1996, I think I was there, or was it 90? No, it was 92. And see the same people, some of the same families, split only by ideology. We have this wall. You have communism here, free world on the other side, and the free world side was spotless. It's brand new BMWs and everything sparkly, clean, and innovative. On the other side is nothing but Trabant automobiles and dumpsters and broken windows and slums. It's pretty obvious that communism doesn't work. And communism encouraged, hey, everything's fine, no need to work hard. Oh yeah, everything's just great, no need to innovate. Let's just keep making the same old crap. Everybody gets to keep their jobs. Nobody has to work hard. So, well, I won't get to politics, but, you know, we keep having new stuff because that's what makes the economy go. And you can, you can argue that that's good or bad, but that's what makes it work. What is my oldest digital Nikon DSLR body? Well, yes, my oldest Nikon DSLR body is the world's first practical DSLR, which is Nikon D1. They were impractical $20,000 abortions that they made before that, which was like Nikon body with some other crazy stuff grafted on, some stuff sold by Fuji, some stuff sold by Americans who grafted these things together in Texas for use in space programs. But the world's first is the Nikon D1. It was announced at the end of 1999 and started to ship around Christmas time. I still have one of those. And do I have one favorite? You know, my favorite, honestly, is the D850. That's a great camera. It's not convenient, but the images it makes are fantastic. The way to full frame mirrorless is a kind of deal breaker for me. Do you see this changing? Nikon and Canon offering non-pro lenses? I don't know. To be honest, if you really want a lightweight mirrorless from Nikon, go Z50. I love that camera. And get the 16-50 lens. Do not get an FTZ adapter. And that is a great camera. That, I think, will really wake things up. And again, I haven't gone to a camera store in decades, unless it was Anorama or B&H. Just order these things off of Anorama or B&H if you think you want it. If you hate it, you send it back, and there's no way you can go to one of those old-fashioned camera stores where the guy sits there and looks at you, and you're pointing around at like the glass counter or like the guy's face or the camera's behind him, there's no way you can figure out if a camera works or not. Do not go there. You can go to look, but never buy at retail. Just buy online at the links I provide. And if you don't like it, send it back. But if you love it, you're on top of things. But there's no way I can tell, or anyone can tell, how much the camera is going to work for them, or how well it's going to work. Is it going to change the view here a little bit? Gee, should we? Bushes? Fire pit? Not a scenic. I wonder where the golfers went. What fun. Anyway, order it and try it yourself. That's what I would suggest. And I say the Z50 is a fun little camera. Okay. Wait a full frame. Gary says loss of flash. Not sure if that's related to. PVC slide page broke in the very late 80s. They were replaced by polyethylene. Oh, good. Then my slide pages are all polyethylene. And by the late 80s, gosh, but in the 90s, I was still looking at that. Hard Ponder says local photo tip. Ooh. Annenberg Estate at Sunnylands. I've heard about that. I think my parents went there. They had to get Rancher visual test lenses not too far from me. Yeah. I know people love doing that. I didn't realize it was also good for photos. Nara says, hey, German, he can confirm communism is awful. Yes, he doesn't have to confirm. The world knows communism is awful. So my little children asked me, what was the stupidest or worst idea anyone's ever had in the whole world? It was some unemployed loser poet named Karl Marx who came up with this totally idiotic idea that if you take everything people make away from them and tell them, oh, things will magically and beneficially, what's the word? Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. If you guys are curious, go talk to anybody who's lived under communists from Eastern Europe and ask them what it was like. It doesn't work. It sounds great on paper. As I teach my children, it sounds great on paper. Free stuff. Everybody helps out everybody. Everybody does what they're best at. But no, ultimately we have people managing it. So people always do what's in their own best personal interest. So the only people who do well under communism are the members of the party. But hey, I distracted. He appreciates my YouTube uploads. Well, thank you. Been following me for years. Thank you so much. Oh, that was your words entirely. Mike in the very wet and windy UK. Some of that sun. Gee, you just have to get about 3,000 feet above the clouds, and then you've got that. I'm being silly. That's part of the good things, though. The reason the UK, it's all rainy. Gosh, I mean, who else makes loudspeakers like you guys do? I was talking about the Japanese making cameras. I mean, when it comes to loudspeakers and hi-fi gear, I think, gosh, in the UK, the British, gee, I know there's so many different ways to split this up, but folks in England and the folks in Scotland making the fantastic stuff you guys do. I think it was nice outside all day long. You guys wouldn't be making such great loudspeakers. What do I think about the EOS R5? I'm curious. Other than telling us the model number and maybe the light frames per second, they don't tell us anything about it. So I'll wait till I see it. I think as well, if you guys don't know, my favorite digital mirrorless camera is the EOS RP for full frame. It's also least expensive, which is marvelous. It's all based on the handling and the look of the pictures. And so the R5 is going to be fantastic. Looking forward to seeing it. So the sooner I can get my hands on one, the merrier. And also, if it goes really fast, really well, then we can dump Sony. Nobody likes Sony. I mean, Sony is just the state of the art for frames per second, autofocus speed. I should say frames per second and autofocus speed. I don't know if anybody who likes their ergonomics or anybody who likes the way the images look. They're okay. I mean, if you're if you're only been shooting like 10 or 20 years, you might not know any better, but some of that didn't come out right. But the point is, the ergonomics are awful. The cameras feel bad in their hands. Why does it feel bad? You see, this is a Nikon. It's designed very well. They used to have the Italians help them. The Giorgio helped design this. Everything is smooth. Everything's at the right angle. My finger naturally hits this button square on. You see these little dials here? This dial. I hope I'm not giving away any trade secrets. Sony doesn't get it. You see that? It's at an angle. Why is it at an angle? Look at the angle at which my finger hits it. Sony's run these straight up, straight down. Maybe they'll just have an arbitrary little angle as if the designer didn't understand why that angle was there and just sort of thought he should put something in. Everything out here. You see this dial here? Can you see this? Look at this. It's hard to show here on camera, but this dial is not exactly straight and flat to the camera. It's at a slight angle, about 7 degrees. Why? Because when my thumb is here, it needs an angle about 7 degrees to run just right. So all these things are designed to feel and fit well. This is a smooth edge. Canons excel at this. Even though the cameras are made out of magnesium, they feel soft because they use not just angles, but they use curves and radiuses. The Sony cameras use hard edges. They feel horrible. The A7 Mark IV has its compensation dial. It's like a razor wheel, like the old Contax focus rings in the front. It's not comfortable. And so what was I getting off on? I'm getting off on one of my little tangents here. Okay. Let's see, EOS R5. Not a Bernie fan. Oh, he's fun to watch, though. But I don't want to get off on that because you don't need me to talk about politics. There's plenty of that. Okay, now we're talking about where am I from? I am from Long Island, New York, if you're asking me. Hello, Patrice D. Hello. Sony grips are so bad, yes. Yes, Nikon Touch and Feel is really good, as are the Canons. What I say, the Nikon D610 and D750 has better image quality than the older D700, apart from the obvious resolution boost. Well, you know, the overall look of the pictures is, why does it seem that I'm moving in my frame? I used to be over here. Image quality, it's going to be about the same. The difference is in image quality. Oh, we've got golfers. You better be quiet. The difference is image quality would be the noise levels and the higher ISO performance, which are subtle, because if you're shooting in daylight at ISO 100, it'll look the same. I think about 10 years ago, someplace on my website, I should actually show how, you know, I got this wild idea once. I had two cameras at the same resolution. One was DX, one was full frame. I shot them. The two files are indistinguishable. Shot at ISO 100, you can't, I think I shot a D3 versus maybe a D300 at the time. Indistinguishable, not similar, not just a little different, but you couldn't even tell that they were even shot on different cameras. D3 gives wonderful skin tones and plenty of resolution for portraits. Yes, D3 gives enough resolution for anything. Aha. Let's see, I've been on the air now, coming up on 2 hours. And again, if I can put a pitch in for my, what is this phone here, my iPhone 11 Pro Max. I love it. I'm probably not even putting a dent in the battery life here. And of course, my screen's been on the whole time. The AF Live View fills a big gap from the D750. It could. Honestly, I don't shoot live view. Won't give us real battery grips. Jay Perry asks, what do I think about the Fujifilm X-H1 in 2020? Now, I'm trying to think. I think the X-H1, I can't pull out my phone and look at my review because my phone is what's shooting this. As I recall, what intrigued me about the X-H1 was it had a huge viewfinder. It was a big, solid, heavy camera. And so the noise was and the sound was very well damped. So the best thing about it was how it felt in hand and how it sounded shooting, how it felt going off. Other than that, again, I would only shoot the Fuji cameras for people pictures. And honestly, I'm not a fan of any of the interchangeable lens Fuji cameras for the most part because I prefer the X100 series with a fixed lens, and I prefer that because of the leaf shutter. The leaf shutter is actually little blades inside the lens that just do this to open and close, as opposed to having to have a focal plane shutter that covers the entire sensor. The reason for that is the leaf shutter simply opens in an instant. It doesn't take us a fixed period of time to cruise across the entire frame like this, so I can get a very fast shutter speed for the flash sync rate. And when I can have a flash sync speed of about 1,000th of a second or better, it helps the tiny little built-in flash balance with daylight. So if I was shooting a still shot of myself, the built-in flash would get me great results as opposed to trying to use a big thing. So X-H1, that's my thought. It's a fun camera, but it's more of a niche, should I say? A niche camera. Nice vid 750, but in manual focus. Yeah, that's the key. Manual focus, I think, well, that's what all television, motion pictures are all shot in manual focus. I don't know if you guys know that. If you're shooting a kid's birthday party, we do autofocus, but in Hollywood, you'll have 3 or 4 guys just running the camera. One person just to run the focus, called the focus puller. And it's all manual, and you've got the actors who walk on marks. There's a little piece of tape on the ground, and they practice and rehearse and mark them. Anyway, it's a whole different thing. So what looks easy in movies is actually rather difficult, and you can't do on your mirrorless camera in autofocus. Oh gosh, UK, politics fun to watch. Yeah, we'll go there. Did I experiment with hi Patrice, low life AF performance? Yes, I've been very impressed. I haven't mentioned it yet, but if you look at KenRockwell.com, again, this is I'm Ken Rockwell from KenRockwell.com, coming to you live today on KenRockwell.tv from the golf course. And gee, I bet you the lights even changed. Yeah, it has changed. In fact, gee, no wonder I'm so dark now. My sun went behind a tree here at the golf course. I was very impressed. I haven't said on this video yet. My D780, shooting it at night. Go look at the sample images at KenRockwell.com. And find the D780 review, use my search box. Photographing in the pitch black in autofocus is just great. It sees in the dark just great. In other words, anything darker, I really wouldn't be able to see in my viewfinder where I was pointing the camera. So yes, I've been very happy with the autofocus performance of the D780 for still shots. Ever fire back the other online photos like to criticize you? No, it's not professional. People want to criticize others, obviously, have nothing else better to talk about. Greetings from the UK. Big stormy night here, not blue sky. But if you got stormy, if you got lightning, I miss lightning. I miss lightning. Solare Music asks, probably been asked this a million times, but what's my favorite camera lens in the last 5 years? If it covers within 5 years, Canon 5 DSLR is what I shoot for serious stuff. Patrice does concert photo, smiley face. Oh, love smiley faces. Juan, hey Ken, do I think Nikon will make someday an F to Z adapter with AF motor built in. Probably not Nikon. I think China's going to come up with that first. And again, do I really care? That's one of my biggest ditches on the Nikon Z system. Crappy compatibility. I can't say crap. It's suboptimal compatibility. FTZ is garbage because it only works with half their lenses. Well, guess what? I own the other half and it won't work on my FTZ. So Canon EOS R, that EOS R adapter ring, the EF to EOS R adapter ring works with everything Canon has done in about 33 years, since 1987. Everything works. VR, autofocus works great. So Nikon is crippled by, gee, do you want to hear the story? Nikon never created a true hybrid. Stu, I'm not sure what a true hybrid is to which you refer. Okay, good. Here's a little history of photography, and I think I covered this. Okay, back in the 1980s when everything changed and it wasn't digital, it was autofocus. Well, what happened was, let's see, I think one of the first practical autofocus systems was patented by Minolta. No, it was patented by Leica. Now, Leica didn't use that patent. They sat on it and they licensed it to Minolta. And Leica's thing was, they're like, well, you know, the men who buy Leica cameras, they know how to autofocus, so we don't need this patent. So they licensed it to Minolta. And needless to say, the world saw otherwise, that everybody loves autofocus. And thus the Minolta X7000, or some of the first autofocus cameras in the mid-1980s. Then Canon and Nikon came on board. And the big problem was, Nikon's lens mount was not optimized for that. Nikon's lens mount was and still is entirely mechanical. Mechanical aperture coupling, mechanical diaphragm coupling, manual mechanical focus. So what Nikon did is they had, of course, the pro market entirely to themselves back in the 1980s. They didn't want to lose all the pros because pros are not stupid. They're not going to go out and buy a complete new set of lenses just to buy a new camera, because when you're pro, you've got a system, not just a camera. You don't just buy a camera and you're upgraded. No, you have to buy all new lenses. And if you're a pro, you've got $10,000, $20,000 of lenses to go out and buy. So it becomes a very big decision. So Nikon had to remain backwards compatible. So their autofocus camera, that's the F4, the first pro autofocus camera, had to be compatible with all their manual focus lenses. So they were stuck with the same mount and the same mechanical actuators, and it was okay back then. Canon, on the other hand, did something really that only an American would do. Totally crazy. Totally broke the mold. I love these guys for doing that. The Canon EF mount was entirely electronic and put the world on its ear. It's still state-of-the-art even today, 30 years plus later, and Nikon is still trying to catch up. The Canon, look at that, my eyes just got big. The Canon EF mount, being entirely electronic, had the focus motor in the lens, every single lens. Electronic diaphragm actuators, every single lens. Because that, there's no mechanical interaction, and that's why when we have adapters, there's so many more adapters that can adapt from Canon to anything else, because the Canon mount was mature back 30 years ago. It did everything it ever wanted to do. It was complete. It was a proper, clean slate redesign, which really ticked off everybody who shot Canon previous to that. Other people who shot the FD mount, they were ticked because all their stuff was basically trash canned by Canon for their future development. And there's still people to this day who are still ticked off at Canon for doing that over 30 years ago. On the other hand, Canon was very smart. They said, wow, we don't own the pro market by any means back then. Their pro cameras were really just sloppy, well, not schlocky, but they were sloppy. They weren't really complete systems. They didn't have complete interchangeability. So they said, screw it. Can't say that on TV. They said, the heck with it. We're going to just make something from the ground up that's just perfect. And that's the EOS mount, which to this day is still fantastic. The problem is, if you fast forward to today, Nikon is so incompatible with itself because all of their different series of lenses don't work. Like this lens, which is an AFS lens, won't autofocus on half of their film cameras, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the Nikon mount has got all these crazy stopgap measures to try to, jock strap and duct tape it together. And so I forget where I was getting off on, but that's some of the history of these cameras. Okay. Oh, true hybrid. Okay. Hero shuts ass. Only thing I ever used in the FTZ is a 35-18G. Hate how much the Z lenses cost. I do too, and they're made in crummy countries. Well, I shouldn't say crummy countries, I forget, but China, bad. Why? Because it's a communist dictatorship. It's horrible. See what they do to their people there? The only people that benefit in China are the members of the party. Everybody else is screwed. I think the problem was it was after World War II, and I'm not going there. Anyway, Charles Jones says, continuing the RP, excellent camera. Wondering what I thought of the 24-240 kit lenses. I have to apologize. I've been trying to get a hold of the Canon 24-240 ever since it came out last year. And I'll place where I was going to get it from, wound up not having it, Adorama, B&H, those guys, and not having it at the time that I thought about getting it, and then something else would come out and distract me. I still need to get on that. So I think it's fantastic. I think that would be my favorite go-to camera, much like the 28-300 on this DSLR, for shooting essentially everything. Being Canon, I'm sure it works great. I'm sure it's super sharp. I would say try it. And again, as I said before, just get it from B&H or Adorama or Amazon or Crutchfield. And if you hate it, send it back. And I don't think you're going to hate it. So by all means, I would say order it. The link's on my site. You can order anything. Just go to kenrockwell.com, click the links link, and then you'll see all the places I use. And I've used any of these people for a minimum of 20 years, like in the case of Amazon, to over 40 years in the case of B&H and Adorama and Crutchfield. And all these guys have at least a 30-day return policy, and you can see if you love it or not. Dad, can I borrow you? Oh. This is awesome. Okay. Any thoughts on adapting medium format lenses? Mamiya has both the Pentax full frame cameras. Thank you. You know, my thought is, why bother? Because the medium format lenses are probably not going to autofocus. At least my medium format lenses are manual focus. If my contact 645 lenses, I think it's fun. If you do this as a hobby, it's always fun to piddle around. And I know I do, but I don't tell you about it. But it never works that well. I am a big stickler. Hey, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark here at kenrockwell.com and kenrockwell.tv. I'm a big stickler for using the camera's brand lenses because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to make them work well together as a system. So I think adapting things are a bit crazy. And also the optics of it. The optics, even though there's no optics in the adapter and it's all air, the way the lens interfaces to the electronic sensor, electronic image sensor, is never really that optimum. And so when I put my Hasselblad lenses on, say, a Fuji GFX, the images aren't really very good. And the whole point of these things, medium format, is supposed to have high quality image, meaning sharp in the corners. So I haven't been a fan of that, but some people love it. But again, adapters are cheap enough. You can get, you know, $10 adapter in China and have fun. David Collins has 4 cameras. Any tips for storage? For example, can I leave it in my room in camera bags, low pro? Gee, I leave my stuff in camera bags. As it's always said, cool and dry. I have no idea where you are. Say if you live in someplace extremely humid, like Manila, then yeah, people usually store those, well, indoors under air conditioning. But cameras want to be kept cool and dry. The hotter they get and the wetter they get, you know, plastic turns to goo or whatnot more. On the other hand, I've lived in New York and California, and I have cameras that are 40 years old, 50 years old, and older, and they're doing just fine. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. And I think the biggest things for the modern cameras is that the plastics deplasticize themselves and turn to just runny black goo. I don't know what that's dependent on. Oh, Hard Pounder asked us, it says, thanks for the tip on using Perfectly Clear. He loves it. Thoughts on Luminar Floor? Thoughts about Luminar 4? I have not tried Luminar 4. I think it attempts to do the same things Perfectly Clear does. I know there's other software that claims to do the same things Perfectly Clear does, which basically, like, for instance, if I ran this as a still shot through Perfectly Clear, it would lighten up my face. I haven't tried those, mostly because I have to shoot, you know, for a living. So once I get something that works, I just get into it and get going on it. So I have not tried Luminar. Photoshop intimidating? Yeah, what's interesting with Photoshop is I've been using it for 25, 30 years now, and I've taken so many classes on it, got the Photoshop world, and I'm intrigued at how on my iPhone I can shoot with Snapseed, and edit in Snapseed, and do just as much stuff with one finger as I spent like 20 or 30 years learning how to do in Photoshop with like all my hands running around, layers and adjustments and masks and so forth. Wow, it's getting nice out here. It's like 80, 75 degrees. All those years Nikon tried to be like, okay. Brian says, he's used my website extensively. It's great, thanks. Currently using a Sony a7 II and a load of old Canon FD lenses, stabilized. Oh, yeah. But the last picture he printed was from his phone. That was it. If you want to talk about phones, something I realized was, this was maybe 10 years ago. My kids are, well, 8 years ago, my kids are in kindergarten. The assignment was, hey, take a big, big poster. Take a bunch of photos of your kid to show us who your kid is. And we started going through my pictures. Half of them were taking on my serious cameras, meaning cameras that only take pictures and nothing else. The other half were shot not on an iPhone, because I didn't have an iPhone back then. All I had was an iPod Touch music player. My iPod Touch had a 640 by 480 camera. It turns out half of the pictures of our kids were shot at 640 by 480, which even in those days looked, well, it was obviously not a pro camera. The point is, those cameras looked great. Printed 3x5 or 4x6 to throw in that poster. Half of the pictures I took of my kids were taken on that little music player. It looked great. And the reason why they looked great was because the camera was with me. It was in my pocket. It came out and it shot the pictures. So, okay. Yeah, the phone, especially today, this iPhone 11 Max Pro, on which I'm shooting this video, which again, the video looks crappy because I'm in shade here, so I don't get burnt in the sun. Take great pictures. Okay, Sharpie the Parrot bought an apt Holman preamp based on my review. Hit the jackpot on Craigslist, 30 bucks. If it works, I love it. Love that preamp. The funny thing was when it came out, we're like, yeah, okay, just like a mid-level preamp. I still think it's probably the best preamp ever made. It's because there's flexibility, the way the tone controls work and so forth. Okay, Mike, Wisconsin says, he's starting from scratch, blank slate, open check to say. Oh, don't say that. There are people who take that and don't go to a camera store. Thinking of D750. D750 is a great start and a great end. What 3 lenses would I recommend? Or would I go to different brands such as Canon? You know, if you want to stay with Nikon, what lens do I recommend? I would get, I should say not would get, I did get. I love, how big can I get this here? I love my 70-300, hey, focus. iPhone, can it focus that close? Anyway, I love my 70-300 ED lens here. It's super sharp. Again, look at its review at kenrockwell.com. I have sample images shot on the D750. Here we go. And this one lens is really all you would need. You wouldn't even need another lens. Honestly, I've had this, what, half a week? I haven't felt even the need to grab any other lens. Shooting ultra wide is very difficult. If you wanted to get a wider lens, I usually grab the 16-35 VR. But wide lenses are difficult to shoot properly. I have an article on my website called How to Shoot Ultra Wide Lenses. I would read that. It's really all about getting closer. It's a special lens for special things. And that would be it. Maybe, you know, that's really all I need. I could buy more lenses, but they all stay home. Let's see. You know what I'm going to try? I'm going to see if I can check my batteries. Hey, I still have 50% battery charge. Good. Okay. Let me get back here. Oh, did you hear the ping? We got golfers here. Or would I go with a different brand? To be honest, a D750 is a good deal and a good buy. And if you buy anything other than a D750, Canon is great. You're going to be looking at the 6D or 6D Mark II. You know, and to be honest, when you asked about lens, Canon doesn't make, they make a 28-300, but it's a huge professional lens and it's not going to be fun to carry around. So I'd say, in the spirit of today's talk, sure, go D750 and 28-300 and pocket the rest. Hope that's a good answer. Yeah, someone else was saying, yeah, the good stuff Nikon makes in Japan, the rest, they offshore. Minat Tadros asks, do I think the in-body image stabilization in the Z6 gives a real advantage over the D780? No, who would ever say that? Oh, Nikon probably trying to sell Z6s. No, I prefer in-lens stabilization. I covered this earlier, like 2 hours ago, so I'll cover it again. The difference is, say shooting at a 50mm lens, in camera or in lens, that potato, it's the same. When you get longer than about 300mm, in camera stabilization starts to give up because simply, even for the tiniest bit of shake of the camera, there's a huge amount of displacement of the image, and the image sensors simply run out of room to move and can't move far enough to compensate for that much image shake. On the other hand, here's what few people realize. For ultra-wide lenses, in-camera stabilization works crummy. Say 20mm lens, 16mm lens, the reason it works crummy is it works fantastically in the center of the image because the lenses are wide, and so for every bit of camera shake, the sensor only has to move a tiny little bit, and that's really good. And the problem is, at the edges of the picture, with an ultra-wide lens, you know how things sometimes get stretched out in the corners? Like, look at this. Even with this lens, it's pretty wide. You see my fingers are getting stretched out there compared to in the middle, stretched out. The problem is even though the sensor might have to move 1 pixel here for a certain amount of motion, they'd have to move 2 pixels off in the corner. Well, the image sensor is not made of rubber. It can't do that. So what happens is with an ultra-wide lens, with an in-body stabilization, it can't fix the corners very well. And the corners get soft in very weird ways because you have motion over and under compensated, so it looks blurry and strange. So they're very different. There's never anything wrong with getting a camera with in-body stabilization, but honestly, I prefer stabilized lenses. Okay, going back to our comments here. Again, this is kenrockwell.com. I'm Ken Rockwell here at kenrockwell.tv, and I'm live. Desert golf course, I gotta love it. And if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the comment section. And I'm now about maybe 5 minutes behind, and I'll answer all of your questions. Ostensibly, this is about the D780, which I just got and I love, but we're covering questions on anything. Okay, Juan asks, would I consider that manual focus like a Pentax 645D has any advantage today compared to D850? Well, Pentax 645D, I forget. 645D, oh, that was the digital Pentax. I didn't shoot that Pentax. Last time I shot a Pentax digital camera, it was like something from the 1980s, even though it was made recently. No, something I haven't done is, I did shoot, honestly, is to shoot a medium format camera. They're better at lowest noise, even for, regular ISOs. the medium format cameras are so clumsy. I wouldn't worry about shooting that, to be honest, even though you and I as photographers might worry about pixels. The people that buy our photos or look at the photos don't know and don't care. And honestly, when I've had clients that wanted something at a higher resolution, I shot at low resolution, resample it in Photoshop, no one has ever complained. Because the people ask for higher resolution if you're selling photos, they don't know what you're talking about. That's why they're asking for resolution. Oh, can I scratch? This picture looks great, I hope. Anyway, except that I'm in shadow, because I would burn up here in the desert with direct sunlight for 3 hours. That's it. I would do a TED Talk. I've heard about those, but, when somebody invites me, I will definitely do one. Godox flashes, to me, it's off-brand. I consider it probably junky stuff. But, and then, if you want to see Godox flashes, my friend Phil Steele has done a bunch of those things about Godox flashes. Although, to be honest, flashes are flashes. All they do is make light, controlled usually by the camera's exposure systems. If I want inexpensive flashes, I just buy used Nikon or Canon brand flashes. For instance, my Canon 580EX Model 2 or whatnot, I think I bought used for like $90 or something. Top-end flash, it's not this year's flash. That's what I would do. So I have not bought those Chinese flashes. Always kept his Japanese-made Sony RX100 Mark I. Genius tool. Good job, Johnny. Mina says, what is the best travel lens you consider for D780? Well, I'll keep saying it. The 28-300 does everything. Now, I'll get into what you say for travel. This is the lens I take if I'm going on a dedicated photo expedition. I bring this one lens, and maybe an ultra-wide. And the reason for that is it does everything I need. I don't need the smaller range lenses anymore. Do I need f2.8? No. Look at kenrockwell.com. Look at my review of this camera, and you'll see the shots I shoot handheld in pitch dark. It's plenty fast. Now, when you say travel, if you want lightweight, then there's nothing wrong with a 51.8. Honestly, it's a great lens. If you look at kenrockwell.com and go look at, I have numerous recommendations of lenses. They're much lighter weight and narrower range lenses, like maybe a 35 to 105 or something. Nikon has made so many hundreds of different kinds of lenses, it's hard to say, but I'd say go that. If you have any inkling of needing to go longer than about 100 millimeters, I would say 28-300. Which lens is it? 28-300? Yeah, Patrice, I love the 28-300. It's super sharp. If you don't mind the size, it is a handful, but it's not that bad. So a dedicated photo trip, by all means, this lens. But if you're only going out to dinner with your friends or something, you don't want to get something so heavy that you're always going to leave it back at the hotel when traveling. You want to get something light enough that you enjoy carrying it. But this lens on this camera is a good match. Okay, I'm going back to my comments here. David says, Tony Chris argued Nikon is not for video, but I first tell you, Sony uses this how 4K video camera overheats. That's just it, I'll admit. My Nikon does really well. Actually, I've shot some videos on my Nikon Z7, and it worked great. It recorded for at least half an hour. It didn't overheat, worked great. Fuji camera, though, might overheated and blew up the battery, so I don't know if I was doing it right. Alan asks, the Z850, D850, and Z7, and for landscape shots at the same time in places in rural Oregon, he's getting results that are somewhat more underexposed. Exposure is the responsibility of the photographer. So if one is too dark or too light, simply exposure compensation is my suggestion. Light meters are not completely automatic. And I really am in shadow here because the sun has moved. Am I going to have to move this show? I don't know. You guys are still watching. I'm wondering if I should sign off eventually. Germeister says, what should he do with his closeted Minolta SR1, but new in 67? Hey, the SR1 was the first camera I ever bought back in 1973, used. Save it. It sounds like you still remember when you bought it, so I think I would save it as a knick-knack because it's not going to be worth anything to sell. David says, forgive me for getting to the Nikon party late only because I worked in the office all the time for Japan's largest bank, but I did tour of duty, getting Japanese to invest in U.S. junk credits. You entered U.S. junk credits. God bless. Okay, well, at least for America, I guess. I don't know. I won't get that one. I didn't even know what I was reading there. Okay. Needed medium format. I can't use bring a view camera because you apparently got some time. No digital camera can beat that resolution. But the thing about resolution is the reason we like the view camera is not because of the resolution. It's because of the movements. We can tilt the frame, tilt the film, tilt the lens. Number one, get rid of perspective errors, which admittedly we can do in the computer, but then we have to resample the pixels. Or we can also get everything in focus. For instance, if I'm on this side of the picture, you just tilt the lens, swing the lens a little bit, then I'm in perfect focus, and the background over here is in perfect focus. You can't do that unless you move the lenses around. So it's not so much the size of the film, it's the fact that everything moves on a view camera. Or Alf says, great to see me on Ken TV. Thank you. Or Rockwell.tv. Actually, the short frame is Rockwell.tv, but it's also KenRockwell.tv is where you can find these. But followed me for at least 10 years, probably way more than you think. I just got the Leica CL. You know, I think the Leica CL is going to be great. I just haven't had the time to play with one yet. I use the same, Patrice says she used the same 28-300 with the D750. Absolutely. Great lens. I forget when it came out, but it's not going away. Lost the pro market share. Okay, life and death. Okay, marketing. Sam, 28, Nikon 50Z lens is the bomb. Check it out. Yes, I have checked out the 15, Nikon 50Z lens. It is crazy sharp, and people were giving people a hard time saying, oh, it's too big. Well, the problem is it's as good as Zeiss Otis lenses are. That's complicated, and that's why it's big. It's not designed to be a little dinky lens. It's designed to be an optically superb lens. Okay. Okay. Video looks good. Thanks, Maksutov. Aren't you the one who invented the mirror lens? Anyway, you know, I just need to throw more light on myself. But again, I don't even have lighting kicking around here. I'm a photographer. I'm not a YouTuber. I put big light panels here would light me up, look real good. But I'm all about the content of what I have to say more so than what it looks like. Phil Steele's, our Stu says, Phil Steele's tutorials are the best. Yes, I love Phil Steele's stuff. He's to the point. He's clear. Okay. Granddaughter wants a starter kit. What would I recommend? You know, recommend is your old iPhone I would give to my daughter, or an old music player. They love those cameras. I don't think she needs a camera. I don't think anybody needs a camera. Otherwise, if we were going to buy her something brand new, I would say Nikon Z50 as a kit with the 16-50, or any of the Nikon D3500 specials that I post at my site for like $397. You get the camera, the lens, and a bunch of other things. That'd be a great way to go. But honestly, you know, I don't think she wants a camera. She wants a way to take pictures. And to take pictures, a good phone. I mean, I haven't tried any of the junk brand phones like the Androids or whatnot. I use the Apples. I mean, they invented the phone. I'm all about originality, but by all means, the Apples look fantastic, especially for video. I'd rather shoot video on this iPhone. And again, the reason this looks crummy, viewers, is because I'm in the shadow under an umbrella in the shadow of a palm tree, trying to show you guys some background here. Gosh, the day is getting old. I need to go out for a bike ride. Anyway. Pepe the Frog. Okay, my favorite government. Okay. How would I compare the D850 in relation to its price? You know, the price, I don't know, because I have to apologize because I shoot for a living. The cost of any piece of gear doesn't really matter to me. And of course, I look at the price, but I don't care. I just get whatever I need and get the job done. I have a page on my website called Is It Worth It? Just go to my site, type into my search bar, Is It Worth It? And the two things you need to compare is, well, is it something you're going to use every single day? Is it going to earn your living for you? Is even just a little bit of improvement in whatever you're buying or using going to make a big change in your life? Is there some new feature which is something you'll use and love all the time? Those are positives to encourage you to want to get it. On the other hand, the less you use it, if you only use it once a month, if there's some new feature that doesn't even matter to you, then it doesn't matter. Also, the other part of the equation is how much money you got. Again, I tend to forget. When I was a kid starting out and I tried to buy my first house, my first job, it was really, it put me in my place. Because, you know, you're a kid, you live in your parents' house, they got a nice enough house, and you try to buy your own house, like, oh gosh, I can't afford anything. Am I poor? Well, yes, I was, so to speak. And so you feel really down. But point is, when you first start out, you didn't have a whole lot of money. I mean, you were a student, you got student debt. On the other hand, if you're like 75 years old and retired like mutual fund manager from, you know, one of the major firms in New York City, we're making like 8-digit incomes every year for like 40 years, then money isn't that, well, money is important to you, of course, but I'm saying, to spend an extra couple of $1,000s and get the Leica you want, that doesn't matter. So that's the other thing you balance. You balance how much enjoyment you're going to get out of this, what percentage of the time, versus how much money you've got. And that will tell you whether or not this upgrade or this new camera is really worth it to you. That's the key. It's always a question of, is it worth it to you? Where are the 1.4Z lenses in Nikon's imagination? What do I think of the new 21.8? I think the 21.8 is awesome. One of the few lenses I really love, well, not few, I should say one of my best loved Nikon lenses is my 20mm 1.8G. Because the key is, if you want to shoot Milky Way, if you want to shoot action in the dark, if you want to be able to focus manually, well, that's the only you can focus. I just, you know, to shoot a 20mm f1.8 in live view, you open up to 1.8 and you can manually focus and get that focus right in and then shoot at whatever aperture you want. I think the 21.8 is awesome. 20mm is one of my favorite focal lengths. When I'm shooting with fixed focal length lenses, I grab my 20, I grab a 35 and an 85, and I'm done. And I maybe bring a 50 macro, but I don't carry it at the same time as a 35. So 20 is very important. I don't like 24. Well, I say I don't use 24. I don't use 28. I'm like, they're wishy-washy. They're kind of like in between focal lengths. The 20 is perfect. It's the perfect ultra-wide focal length. So 21.8, I think, is one of the key and most important lenses. I'm not excited at all about 24 millimeter f1.8s. Again, we're all different, but there's a huge difference between 20 and 24. It sounds like potato, potato. You know how I love to use that phrase, potato, potato, the same thing. But no, 20 is totally different from 24. It's 20% different in focal length, which means like 50% more frame. But the point is the extra frame you're getting is this around the sides here with 20 versus 24. So you're starting to get that swoosh and that swoosh. So 21.8 I think is going to be awesome. If you're a fixed, well, that's probably, I don't have many lenses, but that I think is the first lens I actually got excited about for the Nikon full frame mirrorless. 24 1.8, I just reviewed that. You know, 24 1.8 is boring. Just because I personally get bored by a 24. I get excited by a 20. Carson Gordon says, love my reviews. Thanks for being you. Well, thank you for being you. Thank you for that. Okay, photo safari to Africa. Weight size restriction, should I take Nikon 200 to 400 or 200 to 500 f5.6? Well, there, I think you answered your own question. Weight and size restrictions, 200 to 500 gives you more range. What you lose at 200 to 500 is you lose a stop of speed, which really only matters if you're trying to throw teleconverters on these, because then you're starving for light. But since you're shooting digital, you should have plenty. And the 200 to 400, I believe, focuses more closely. But if the animals aren't getting closer than like 8 feet to your truck, then I would say by all means 200 to 500. Plastic turning to DET or sunscreen tactic. Okay, there we go. Oh my gosh. Okay, I've been on the air here now for 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I'm still working on the same bottle, and I haven't taken a single break. This has all been live here at KenRockwell.tv and KenRockwell.com, and I'm Ken Rockwell. I've been doing my website, KenRockwell.com, for over 20 years. I've been shooting Nikon for nearly 40 years. I've been shooting personally for over 50 years. So I've seen a few things come and go, which gives me my perspective. Gosh, I'm probably the world's winningest photographer. Every time I've entered a photo contest, I stopped entering them because every single one I entered, I either won first prize or grand prize. Boom. And it just took the fun out of it. It's like, I don't know. The key is, I think a little crazy. I make photos a little crazy. Well, here's a story about photography. When I first started, I was like most people were. I was intrigued by the equipment more so than the final result. So I got my first camera, and then I wanted the fisheye lens and the ultra-wide lens and the 200 millimeter lens and the 700 millimeter lens. And it wasn't until I had been shooting for about 20 years, I needed to enter a contest, that I looked at my work, my grand oeuvre, that I figured had every marvelous photo in it. But no, somehow all the great photos I thought I had made, I'd never made, because I was too busy fiddling with equipment. So from that point on, I realized that I had all the technical stuff taken care of. After 20 years, I could photograph anything I could see. But the question is, I wasn't seeing anything. The only thing difficult in photography is seeing the picture in the first place. And that was something I completely forgot about. And admittedly, if you can see the picture in the first place, that's a difficult subject to talk about. But the key is you're walking around, you're like, aha, there's the picture. And I have this whole thing about fart on my website, about seeing the picture, then turning it into an actual interesting photograph. The key is if you can see it, you can shoot it on an iPhone. Especially today, my iPhone has 3 lenses on the one side and another camera pointing the other direction. Gosh, you just put everything on your iPhone today. That's what's important about photography. So let's see. Oh, you have a look. Thank you. Well, thank you, Arvo, for reading my website. Gosh, I love being able to help people with what I've learned. Mahler 7, or Mahler 7th, maybe I should say, has the Nikon 20mm f2.8 AIS. I do too. And it's super for Milky Way. And if you think the 22.8 is super for Milky Way and close up, try the 20mm f1.8 Nikon lens, because it's even it's much sharper in the corners, wide open, if you're shooting Milky Way stuff. So all those little points of light are going to be super sharp. And being a little more than a stop faster is going to be a huge help. So I do love the 22.8. Seeing the picture, yes. Johnny agrees. No. Scruff King, man, I am not in Vegas. Not that I have a problem with Vegas. Actually, I'm in the shade here. Can I even do this? What do I do here? What do I do to up my game here now? If I get myself, look at this. I'm going to get up and walk around. Oh, get up and stretch. Now, what if I go back over here? Am I going to be in light? I can't even take a picture of my setup with my phone, because my setup is my phone. Stretch break. Again, I'm Ken Rockwell, live here from the Desert Golf Course, talking about the D780 or any other questions you might have live. Unless, of course, you guys have asked every question you could possibly imagine, and I should sign off and go back to sleep. Go for a bike ride, have some dinner. What do you guys think? Have I answered every possible question? Maybe I have. You know, I'm not tired. Been on here for an hour and a half. No, 2.5 hours almost. Well, tell you what, I've got 125 people watching this live. What do you think? Have you guys seen enough? Is there anything else you'd rather talk about? Okay, well, tell you what then. I'm going to sign off. I could do this forever, but too much of a good thing. Let's see, golf course. I love it. Plus, my lighting is starting to change. Maybe if I really get excited, we'll do this again tomorrow. Oh, Life and Death asks. He shot some aerials, or she shot some aerials during OpSale 76. Hudson River down to the City Harbor, full of boats. Kodachrome. Kodachrome. Yes, you know, that was just it. We talk about Kodachrome. Okay, back in 1973, I got my first 35mm camera. I was borrowing my parents' 2¼ cameras before that. And for whatever reason, I started shooting Kodachrome, which back then was called Kodachrome. It's Kodachrome 2 and Kodachrome X, I think. The 25-speed stuff, or the 64-speed stuff. And I always felt guilty shooting 64 because it made it so much easier to get your exposures. But I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much grainier. The key is, I have my Kodak 550H carousel projector with its DEK 500-watt bulb. And I project out on my 6-foot widescreen, and those were so detailed. Even to this day, people's eyes would bug out in terms of the resolution. And people back then were always worrying, oh, can I print 8x10? People have no idea the quality of the cameras and the pictures that you could crank out. Likewise today with digital. There's another article I'm gonna write someday about horsepower and megapixels and bathrooms, which is people today are driving on 400, 500, 600 horsepower cars just for fun. They have no comprehension of how much power these have. In other words, they're not using any of the power. In the old days, you put your foot on the floor for maybe 10 seconds, you got on the freeway, you know, going freeway speeds, then you can take it off. Today, you never even get your foot on the floor. Any modern car, I mean, say if you like nice cars, you know, if you're driving, you know, V8 Porsche Turbo or something like that, as long as you get your foot doesn't even get to the floor, and you're already at freeway speeds. If you put your foot on the floor, you're like, oh, holy crap. Likewise with pixels. The cameras today have such resolution, you can print any size you want, and it's more than enough. I sold an image that I shot set down at 2 megapixels on my D5000. I sold it to McDonald's. I shot it on my 18 to 300mm zoom at ISO 2000. They put it on a billboard. It looked just great. Okay, we got some questions here. Oh, you're welcome, Patrice. Thank you. Yes, Nikon's going to survive. I think, you know, it's like our newspaper's going to survive. You know, I wasn't around. You know, when radio came out in the 1920s, people assumed that newspapers would be gone because why would anybody buy a newspaper which had stuff that's like 3 hours old? Because in the old days, newspapers came out like 2 or 3 times a day. That's how you got news. That's what they talk about, latest edition, read all about it, hot off the press. Newspapers came out multiple times a day if there was news that broke. And then when radio came out, people were like, who's going to read a newspaper? We still have newspapers today with the internet. Likewise, you still have AM radio. We're supposed to go away when FM radio came out. So yes, Nikon's always going to survive. It's going to survive doing what it does best. Okay. Iggy Noor asks, any point to buying the D780 when the D67 around? Oh, absolutely. The piece, the D780 shoots better and faster. Anything that moves, autofocus, is faster. All the controls work better. It's less stupid. I mean, the Z7, Z6, I think just a lot of them things are stupid about it. Menus and stuff don't work out well. They're still getting the autofocus system worked out. So, Alan, thank you for the thanks. Do I think about the D6? Yeah, that's it. It has 2 more FPS. It has a newer autofocus system. Even the autofocus system, my D3, I think is fantastic for everything I'm shooting. But, you know, they can't keep making the same camera. They got to do something to get people. Kevin asks, he was not here from the start, so I could have answered it. Yes, I probably have, but let's see what's the question. D780 or Z6? You know, that's an excellent, excellent question. Kevin Kasser asks, would he prefer the D780 over the Z6 or the advantages and benefits? Well, there is different than night and day. And depending on what you're trying to do, one might be better than the other. One is mirrorless, One is a digital single lens reflex. Quite simply, for anything that moves in action and autofocus, by all means get the D780 and shoot it with the regular single lens reflex camera finder. On the other hand, if you're shooting video, shooting live view, and not using the single lens reflex finder, but only using the screen, then save yourself the money and get the Z6, which will work at least as well if you're shooting for videos and for mirrorless. On the other hand, if you want to see playback images through the viewfinder, then get the Z6. If you want to zoom in on playback images through the viewfinder and set your menus to the viewfinder, for instance, if you're shooting out in desert sunlight, I can't even see the screen on the back of the camera, much less, get that close to it. So then the mirrorless is better. So it depends what you're trying to do. So they are very different. But yeah, the autofocus is not that great on the Z series of camera. People in events, that's motion. I don't know if they fix this, and I sure hope they have. A huge problem with the Z7 and Z6 was when you have a group of people, sure, it has facial recognition like every camera has in the past 10 years, but the problem was it wasn't smart enough like every other camera to figure out which face was the best face. So if you got a bunch of people here, it might focus on some guy 3 feet back, which is bizarre, but then the whole frame is out of focus. It wouldn't be smart enough to just pick the first frame. I know on some of my other cameras, like the Sonys, if the person who's closest turns away, it'll pick the next closest person because you wouldn't even want to focus on the back of the head here because it's not a central point. That really defective with the Nikon Z6 and Z7. So maybe new firmware has fixed it, maybe not. But honestly, new firmware tomorrow isn't anything that helps me make pictures today. So I would stay away from the Z6 for people and action. Robert Varner, it's an awesome show. Thank you, Robert. I'm having fun here, though I am in even worse shadow now because the trees in the summer. Thoughts on Olympus new Starry Sky AF mode in OMD Mark III? No, I'll admit, Chris Baxter, I don't even know what that mode is. Something nifty about the iPhone in which I'm shooting this is it has a long exposure mode that automatically integrates multiple frames and matches them around so you can shoot handheld long time exposures. I've shot the Milky Way with my iPhone. It works and has even less motion of stars and its long exposure than I get on my DSLR because it's actually tracking the star motion or say the Earth's motion. And if that's what Olympus is doing, and I think it might be, I think that's awesome because you won't have to put your camera on a clock drive. There are clock drives. I discovered, gosh, look on eBay. There are clock drive systems where you just, it's got a tripod mount for your camera. And then you can make long exposures, not have the sky move. Ralph asked me about my professional body of work. Well, the best way to see my work is to go to my gallery and look on the wall, physical, where it's all painted and printed and lit up. But honestly, go to kenrockwell.com, just click the gallery button, and you can see my online stuff. I need to arrange it because I just have my latest shots first, but that's what you can see. That's the easiest way to see it. That's what I've shot. Working with PC lenses on a Z6 is a bit problematic due to the FTZ. Oh gosh, that sounds like a kludge. Although, being able to see mirrorless, the problem is with, as you know, with PC lenses, once you shift them, the finders don't work that well on an SLR. You're right, Robert Varner's telling me bike ride. Yeah, I need to get out of here. But then I gotta get up. Why not a used D750? Actually, a D750 for people shots is a great idea. Use D750 if you're a pro, even better idea. Although I'd say look at the new prices because it's been getting such discounts lately that the new prices aren't that much. Well, I don't know, I haven't looked at it, but that could also be like. Harry Sherman asks, is there an image quality difference between the output of the D750 and D780 raw photos when using live view? Do all those phase detection points? No, the thing about autofocus is either something's in focus or not. Very rarely, there's not much of a period of time during which you're only a little bit out of focus. You're either in focus or out of focus. I have not compared the two, and I don't even shoot raw, but I don't think so. A question like this tends to suggest that you're expecting there to be more of a difference than there actually is. No, the biggest difference is in marketing and always trying to make the new stuff seem more valuable so you'll pay more for it. I don't think any bit is any different. So if money matters, D750 is going to look the same. Hello from Greece. Thank you from Greece. Local place here was talking about a Greek festival. I was getting excited about that. Thank you for my positive attitude and free content. Well, thank you for looking at it. That's why I put it up there. LJS, why is Sony the leader in mirrorless cameras and will Canon bring something new to the table? Well, to answer the last part first, yes, Canon will always bring something new to the table, as will Nikon and Pentax and Minolta and Olympus. Japanese don't sit around on their whatevers. I really respect the Japanese. The Japanese have always got something going on. So yes, there's always something new coming to the table. Why is Sony the leader in mirrorless cameras? Well, simple, because they started it first. Now think about it. Sony has been the leader in electronic imaging at least since the 50s or 60s in the consumer world. They were the first with camcorders, black and white, half-inch, helical scan, reel-to-reel video recorders from the 60s for very rich consumers. In the 60s, camcorders are mirrorless. They have a sensor, and back before sensors, they had vacuum tubes called, image orthicons and so forth, Vidicons. They would pick up the image. Even in the 80s, the camcorders actually used vacuum tubes to pick up the video image. So Sony has been doing this a very, very, very long time. Sony's been making image they've been making vacuum tube image sensors, integrated circuit image sensors, or CCDs they've done. Back in 1992, I was an application engineer for Sony CCDs, and they made 24 by 36 millimeter image sensors even back then. And I don't know how long before that they're making these electronic sensors. So Sony, I would say easily, is the world leader in consumer image sensors. They've been making these cameras for decades upon decades upon decades. So to make a still image camera with a 24 by 36 sensor is something that they could have done 10 years before that. They just didn't bother to. So that's why Sony is the leader. Sony is the leader simply because they've always been the leader. They had the experience. And they also didn't have anything else to work with. They bought what was left of Minolta. There wasn't much going on at Minolta at that time, which is why Minolta gave up and sold out. So that's why Sony's the leader. The thing is, Sony doesn't know photography. Ergonomically, the cameras are the worst. Yeah, they are the worst. Fuji has just as equally awful menus, but at least Sony has real dials. Sony does not. Nobody likes Sony's ergonomics. Now that we have now that we have Nikon and Canon to choose from, we can update and go back to real camera makers as opposed to Sony. On the other hand, if you want high-speed frame rates with mirrorless, then you've got Sony. But that's a great thing about being alive today. We have so many brands to choose from, all of which compete heavily, and the fact is they're also different in enough ways that there's always a clear winner for whatever one thing we're trying to do. It's not like they're all very similar, and then it would be potato again, and we'd have a hard time making a choice. If you want mirrorless, and the reason you want mirrorless is so you can see what you're doing live through the Finder, as opposed to looking at that dinky little LCD screen, then, Sony for high speed, Canon and Nikon for image quality, and Canon or Nikon for great ergonomics. And in my case, I'm all about ergonomics and image quality. I don't care about speed, so that means Canon. In fact, let's see, if you go to my article, go to kenrockwell.com, and look at my article called Canon versus Sony versus Nikon full frame mirrorless, you'll see everything, knockdown, drag out, compared. What it comes down to is Sony has the best speeds, the best frame rates, the fastest autofocus, but the worst ergonomics. So if you're all about speed and frame rate, well, of course we're ignoring digital single lens reflexes, which do this as well, then you want to go Sony. If you're not about speed and frame rate, then you can skip Sony because they have crappy ergonomics and mediocre image quality because the colors aren't all that great. Then go back to Nikon and Canon. Now, in the case of Nikon and Canon, they have fantastic colors as JPEGs, different but equally fantastic. And then if it comes to ergonomics, then the Canon wins. And there you go. Let's see, I've got some more questions come in. Okay. What's funny is I don't even know if you guys, I presume you're all seeing the comments live here, or can't you? I mean, I'm reading them back to you as I answer these questions. But I'm thinking, oh, gee, well, they archive all these comments. Sony went for the retro look. Sony didn't go for look. It's really sad. Is it D750? Yes, the D750 is a great buy in 2020. It was a better buy over Christmas. I haven't checked the price today yet. In fact, do you guys know, every one of my reviews at kenrockwell.com has a section under specifications, under prices. Every time I go back into that page and edit it, I check out the price and I update it. So you can see something like a D850, you can see what the prices have been ever since it was introduced. You can see on the D750 what the prices were ever since it was introduced. And this helps you because you can tell if whatever today's price is, and again, prices change from day to day based on the exchange rate of yen versus dollar, as well as whatever else is going on in the market. You can see if today is a great day to buy, or if Nikon just temporarily upped the price. Also, I think Fuji did this with the X100F. Was $10.99 the day before the X100V was announced, and then as soon as the X100V was announced, the X100F went back up to $12.99 to make the X100V at $13.99 look like less of a stretch. And again, I archive all that, so you can find that on my website. Yep, at least 10 years old it works, and to be honest, for the past 10 years, digital SLRs have been fantastic. Oh, it looks like a compliment here. LJ says, I'm one of the most knowledgeable, thank you, living encyclopedia when it comes to cameras. Please keep up the great work you do. Not to toot my own horn, but one of the reasons I might be an encyclopedia was when I was a little kid over 50 years ago. Of course, like most of us today, I studied cameras. And I'd go to the public library and read old issues of popular photography, and well, actually modern photography magazine, going back to the 50s and the 40s and the 30s, because I thought it was really interesting. And so the key was, back then, I didn't know what was know what people did and had to deal with back in even the 30s and 40s and 50s. And boy, photography was a pain in the whatever back then. And I still hold that knowledge today, kind of like in radio. Gosh, when I first started radio, I was in radio back in high school. And that was 70s. We had all this donated equipment from the 50s and 40s and 30s. So I got to work with this old ancient tube gear and falling apart tubes. And the old tubes had like little, caps on top to get the signal in and so forth. But I made fun of it at the time. But in reality, that means I've got all this experience, something I love to share. Something about how to donate to. Dennis asked me how people can donate to me for my knowledge. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by knowledge. I mean, you can always, contact me and hire me out as a consultant, although it's expensive because it takes away from sharing with everybody else. But the ways to help me do what I do is, number one, the biggest help to me is simply let me help you by suggesting where to get your stuff. If you go to my site, click any of my links to Amazon, Crutchfield, B&H, and Autorama, those guys are the main source. I say you're the main source of funding by buying through those links, because then I get thank you from them, which helps me do what I do. You don't pay anything extra. And it's it's the biggest source of support to do what I do. And it also means I could care less what you get or if you get, because I do well enough that I don't care what you get or even if you get something, which is why I can be so honest. That's the biggest help. Doesn't cost you anything. Just anything you get from any of the links on my website. In other words, go to kenrockwell.com, click links. Whatever you get at any of those places is all good. In other words, if you go to, say, Amazon and get some socks for the baby and some diapers and something for the dog, it's all good. And that is a huge help. If you just want to donate, I think every page of my website has a link to donate through PayPal, but that's the least fun. Just to send cash. Honestly, I just get your stuff, and I don't even care if you get anything or not, but if you're going to get something, then use the links I have. And I don't know if some of these, there's other schemes now to, I don't know what they call them, the coupons and so forth. I don't know if any of that stuff supersedes the help that goes to me. But that's the biggest funding for what I do, and that's how I can spend the time that I do, giving all this information away for free. Because when you guys get your stuff and use my links, that's what supports me. Thank you. Hi from Ireland. Gotta love Ireland. I haven't been there yet. I've been to Scotland and England, but everybody loves Ireland. Still shooting D3S. I wish I had a D3S. I'm still back in the D3. And I hate the fact that, really, I love my D3, but I still have to spot out all the dust spots because I shoot macro in my studio every day at f32 and f22, and I see all those spots. The Somber CS says, if on a budget, $600 or $700, which one is better, use full frame or new crop sensor camera? Oh, I love this question. This is like one of those sneaky multiple choice questions, because first off, regardless of price here, the question is full frame better than crop sensor? Well, that is a great question. Full frame isn't necessarily better. It depends what you're doing. Nature, landscapes, dim light, tripods, go full frame. If you're shooting action and trying to photograph birds, then go crop sensor, because you get effectively a longer focal length lens. So always used, I think, is always a better deal. That's a good point. I think the question you have is, it's always better to get a used, dollar for dollar. Whether or not you want full frame or crop is a different issue, and that's more of a personal, what are you going to shoot question. Okay, hey, somebody said, wow, can I get a D? I paid like $5,500 for my D3, and I still love it. And it's funny, when you pay $5,500 for something, you figure that's what the value is. Looks like it's worth 10% of what it used to be worth. Okay, Stefan says, 2 more things to Sony. Is one thing, A9 1 or 2 is simply amazing. 3 years ago published, is still leading today. Yes, the Sony A9-2 is really, I wouldn't say out of place, it stands out. That's what I need to say. It's so fast and it's silent. For shooting high speeds, I've shot sports with it, and I love it, because admittedly, the Nikon or Canon 5 D5s and 1DX Mark II, yeah, they run at those speeds, but as those of you who haven't shot them don't realize, while you're shooting at those speeds, the reflex mirror is doing this. The reflex mirror, how this camera sees is, I love this. You see that? There's a mirror right there. That thing is flipping up and down at 14 times a second, making a heck of a lot of noise, and the viewfinder frame is looking like this. Can I do this here? No, I can't do that, but maybe no, the whole screen is images. The whole image is bouncing up and down like crazy when you're shooting a single lens reflex camera at those sorts of frame rates. So it doesn't make it happy, as opposed to the A9 Sony, or any of the Sonys in silent mode. It just doesn't even hum. It just shooting at 20 frames a second. In other words, it doesn't feel like it's not happy doing it. Any of these single lens reflex cameras, again, you always feel like it's going to explode. It is not a pretty thing. It is not quiet. It is not smooth. It's noisy, but it works. Where am I going to travel this year? Oh man, I wish I knew. We're planning to plan some workshop photo outings, which you guys are all invited to, in California's central coastal areas, I think in March and April. And then I'm definitely, I believe, going to be back in Yosemite in October. In terms of fun trips, I haven't even thought that much because I'm a dad, you know. Between shooting for a living and chasing the kids around, it's not like when I used to just travel all the time. Sony made a huge step forward with the 400 2.8. Yes, they did. Bless Sony. And the Sony 600-4, bless Sony. And they were very creative on those too, because they tried to take the weight off the long end of the lens and move it more towards the center, so the whole thing had less inertia, so you could point them more quickly to shoot action. The problem is the stabilization works pretty poorly. So for nature and landscape stuff with a super long lens, they're not as good. But for sports and action, it's kind of like a toy lens. It's like this plastic thing, doesn't weigh anything. And so yes, thank God they made those. They focus super fast, and they have fantastic optics, so hats off to Sony for doing that. With a D4 or D5, you scare away people and wildlife alike. Let me tell you, yes, for those of you who haven't shot the even shot in single shot modes, any of the pro cameras make a lot of racket, and even just one frame, kabam, even in their silent mode. The silent mode of any of these pro cameras is louder than the regular modes of something like a D3500. Have I tried the GF100, the GF 110 millimeter? No, I haven't. What I have tried in the GF line from Fuji, I've got at CanonRockwell.com in my reviews under Fuji. The GFX 50R pics on my website are amazing. How often do I use the camera? Thank you very much. Well, here's a secret. Oh, I'm getting some more sunlight. Here's a secret. I borrowed it, and then the people that loaned it to me, well, actually, I bought it. Yeah, I borrowed it direct from Fuji. I asked them, really nice. And they let me play with it. I took it to my Yosemite trip and made those shots, and then it went back. Tell you what I'm gonna do, boys and girls. I'm gonna put my umbrella back down and maybe knock over my camera in the process. So let's get ready to laugh at me. Because the sunshine, okay, coming along here. I'm not sure what, no laughing allowed. Let's see. I spent all day with you folks. How cool is that? My kid's probably watching, laughing at this, and I hope he's getting a kick out of it. That's right, that's you, Ryan. It's like, look, Dad's live. In fact, it was funny. The whole family was watching me one day. I was upstairs in my studio doing this just as a whim. Again, I woke up like a Saturday morning. And I'm like, oh, what am I going to do today? Okay, this is funny because now I'm trying to make this old umbrella collapse. Okay, I think it finally did. Don't worry, I'm still here. Okay, the umbrella is collapsed. Oh, you know, it's funny. I've also, of course, put the camera in do not disturb mode. And I think one time when I was shooting this, the family's calling me because they're watching it up in the living room, and they're like, Dad, there's a booger hanging out of your nose or something like that. And of course, I didn't know until I got off the air. Oh, light's horrible. Okay, let's see. Any other questions come in? I just can't run the battery down on this iPhone. Been on the air coming on 3 hours now. In love with the image quality of his GFX 50R, not so much the autofocus, You know, the stuff I shot on the 50R, the autofocus was fine because I was shooting I was photographing things that didn't move. Gee, all I've done here is I've now put the umbrella shaft in the way of the sunlight. Tell you what if I do that? Great, is the sun gonna hit my glasses here? And melt my eye? Oh, there goes a golfer. More golfers. Can you see him? I don't know. Ken, still have my D100. I remember the D100 with its CCD sensor. Actually, no, I guess I got rid of my D100, but then I found one in a thrift store for 50 bucks about 10 years ago, and I couldn't resist. Let's see. D780 with its CMOS, thought the CCD sensor was better than the CMOS. I don't have any opinion on the difference between CMOS and CCD. The nice thing with the CCD was you had ultra-fast flash sync speed, not a flash sync, but shutter speeds. The CCD sensors would go up to, say, a 16,000th of a second, which I never used. But ultimately, it's the corporate the corporate color balance, the corporate model and lookup tables and the corporate standard for color was what Nikon did. Oh, well, hold on. D100 versus D7100, those are two totally different generations. D100 was the original digital cameras, which I always thought looked really awful for instance, colors and highlights and shadows. D7100 is a current generation camera, which I think looks worlds better. So it's not the sensor, it's what's done with the data that comes off the sensor. So I would say 7100. Haha, Johnny Boy says, totally cool. I'm not sure what, all I need now is some frog to jump out of the pond up to the back of your chair. That would be cool. I'm a troublemaker, but again, I'm also just one guy. I get up this morning, I'm like, should I go? I really should go for a bike ride here. But considering I've got over 100 people watching this live, it's like I can't just leave until either I lose my internet connection or my battery explodes. Which again, this is not a, what was that, Kyocera phone? Or LG phone had those burner phones. I mean, really, they burnt up on airplanes as a regular thing. Used to shoot steam trains at night with large flash bulbs. I thought that guy had sheet film. How would today's modern cameras duplicate that? You know, they would do it just great. You would use remote controlled flash and you could of course use bulb mode. As all of you folks probably realize, the bulb mode was for flash. In the olden days, like 1900s, it was dark out and so dark you'd have your camera set to like, you know, F16. You put it on bulb mode, open the bulb, then you'd fire the flash bulb manually in your other hand or torch off the flash powder, make your exposure, and then close the shutter. In other words, the contribution of the ambient light to the picture was very minimal, and that's what bulb mode was. So by all means, steam trains at night, you open up the shutter on, you say a D850 or D780, you could actually run around. You could run around with one flash, take like one of the bit larger handheld flashes, run around, pop it off at all different locations, and there you go. Okay, Basil says, he moved over completely to Panasonic S-Series. He's very pleased. No one asked me to share this info. Well, thank you. Again, Panasonic is one of those things I'd love to play with, but again, I'd rather be shooting than playing. So I just haven't had the chance to play with the Panasonic. The XT30 is best camera quality-wise versus price, and I love my XT30. Under interchangeable lens cameras from Fuji, I think my XT30 as well as the T20 and T10 are my favorites because those Fuji cameras, I love the built-in flash, and I love that everything just works. And that was the thing about shooting the GFX 100 Fuji versus the XT30. I brought them both to Yosemite last year, and I hated the ergonomics of the GFX 100 because they thought a great idea was to take off all the manual controls from the camera, so everything has to be controlled through menus. And it was such a big, heavy camera, and then just to pick up and it had no flash. And to pick up the XT30 with this built-in flash and go poof, 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 and get the shots I actually need. Oh, there we go, golfers. Oh, did that Fringer EF adapter work well with Nikon? Yes, the Fringer adapter works great. And the secret is my Canon 50mm f 1.0 and my 300mm 2.8 Canon, which didn't work with the most recent, well, the revision to firmware as of several weeks ago when I wrote that review. There's a new revision coming or is just here that those two lenses work. So yes, the world's fastest, lowest light possible combination mirrorless camera system that's autofocus is not that bogus knocked 58mm f 0.95 manual focus lens. It's the Canon 50mm f 1.0 lens on the Fringer adapter, which autofocuses, at least mine does now, on my Z7, and works great. So yes, the Fringer adapter is awesome because I can use my Canon lenses that I don't have an analog to in Nikon. It works just great on the Z. I mean, really, it's almost like not having an adapter because the things focus immediately. And the biggest limitation is Z7's own autofocus systems. How's it cut? Okay, shutter click sound compared to D750, I don't know, but something, oh gosh, my camera's not covered with all the schmutz from my old sleazy umbrella here. Let's see, I can turn this on. That's the sound it makes, but as you know, this is highly unscientific because the level controls inside my phone are one thing, and the camera going off, you can't tell. I don't know that there's, to answer Richard's question, shutter click sound compared to Z750, I don't think it's much different. The shutter sounds vary mostly by class. The loudest cameras from anybody are there. I should be quiet because there's golfers teeing off over there. The loudest cameras are the pro cameras because the pro cameras are fast. Fast means loud because not like a car where poorly designed cars are loud. In the case of cameras, as things are moving quickly, so they bang into each other more quickly, and even for the same amount of damping, they're very loud. Then the mid-level cameras like the D700s, D780s, D850s, those are moderately loud. And the quietest single-lens reflex cameras are the little baby ones. The D3500s are the quietest because they're the smallest and because they're the slowest. There's the least amount of things banging into each other fast. But from year to year, it doesn't matter that much. A D3500, I think, is about as loud as the original D3000. Okay. Thank you, Johnny. Thanks for enjoying our show here. My Human Wreckage asks, he has a D300H, no, D2H, the JFET sensor. He loves the colors. Well, God bless you, because I have to shoot my D2H as raw to get the colors I want. But that's just it. Color is art. There's no correct answer. Accurate colors don't mean anything. If you're a scientist, and that's what Kodak out of business is, you know, that they're scientists define their color science, and they just tried to go for accurate colors, and Fuji went for colors that look good. Looking good does not mean accurate. Ask any artist. It's like, it's an art form. So it's whatever you're trying to say with your images. So I prefer the newer ones, and if you prefer the older ones, that's great. How do I keep my bodies and lenses free from dust and fungus? You know, I keep them in a drawer, or I keep the good ones in a vault, in a safe, which the key is it keeps the dust off of them. I don't leave them out. So either they're in the safe, or they're in drawers, or you can put them in file cabinets, or just store them in a case. I love the think tank stuff. Fungus, you know, that's more of a where you live thing. And if you live someplace extremely humid like Manila or Malaysia, you want to keep it in an air-conditioned place. In fact, I have not had a problem with fungus. It's a question of keeping them dry. Don't store them, I forget, when you've got a basement, don't keep them in the basement. Keep them someplace cool. Thank you from Wales, UK. I worked from a guy from Wales. You guys are awesome over there, though I have not gotten to visit Wales. Actually witness a Ken Rockwell live stream. Yes, Skylight, you are witnessing a live Ken Rockwell stream. The days when people debate if Ken was even real. You know, it's funny. When I meet people at Costco, people are like, oh my gosh, you're a real person. I'm like, well, yeah, what did you think I was? Thank you so much. Achilles writes, watched my first live and it was very useful. I'm going to watch this live too. Great landscape, I think. Cold Athens. Oh, see, I guess that's right. It's February. Well, I'm very lucky. We have a 4-day weekend here, so I am goofing off. So, but, you know, the problem Nikon was trying to solve with the 50mm 0.95 is they're trying to copy Canon. Do you know who invented the 50mm 0.95 lens? Canon did back in 1961 for their rangefinder cameras. Canon attempted to add a 50mm f1.1 for their rangefinder cameras back in the 1940s, and things lied dormant until Canon shook up the world with the 50mm f1.0 autofocus lens back in 1989 for their autofocus cameras, which still today is a very useful lens. And then Leica copied the 50mm 0.95 for the rangefinders. It was a copy, who cares? They still say that today, not deluxe, who cares? And then Nikon decided to make this 50mm 0.95. It's not for photography. It's for halo rights or bragging rights. And the funny thing is, a 50.95, who cares? It's been done before by Canon over 50 years ago. What would be interesting is Canon simply from 0.95 is the same as 1.0. Nikon should have made it 0.90 just to be something different. That would be intriguing, but just for number's sake, it wouldn't be impressive for photography. But it's just for marketing. And it's really sad because Nikon can't even get the lenses we do need, much less make lenses like this that we don't need. So I'm not impressed, which is why, again, I wouldn't buy a Nikon Z if I had the choice. You know, Canon EOS RP is what I'd recommend people get. Okay. TDK Bluetooth speaker. Oh, is it nice sound? Well, again, whatever sound you're hearing is whatever's coming through my iPhone. I think it's in mono, so if it sounds good, I'm impressed because I did nothing. Awesome stuff came from Australia, thank you. What I think is hilarious is the studio stuff I shoot. I use studio microphones, studio equipment, studio processing, and it still sounds crappy on YouTube, but I'm trying to do it in stereo. And it takes me a long time to get the levels just right, as opposed to this live broadcast where the levels are just whatever the phone does, and the levels come out just as well and sound even better. I'm like, well, hold on. If this live broadcast can get that for free, why can't I get that otherwise? It's like one of those things like George Carlin once said, he goes, this is great. He goes, well, hold on. If the black box they make out of some material on an airplane, so that even after the airplane crashes, they can go find this black box and we'll have like a tape recording, at least they did in the older days, tape recording in it, that's completely undamaged. He's like, why don't you just make the whole airplane out of that stuff? And they wouldn't have to worry about the plane crashing and getting damaged in the first place, but such it is. It's amazing this is just done on your iPhone, super quality. Yes, don't tell anybody, but also quality-wise, the only thing that matters, as I said, is lighting. And you see how I'm in the shadow? If I was serious about this, I would have been in a scrim. In other words, you take like a white sheet of cloth and put it above you to block the sun. So the sun, instead of being a harsh sunlight on you, it drops the level of sun and also spreads it out so it's smoother light. And then you take additional light and throw light at me. And you watch a motion picture shot by a real cinematographer, someone with ASC after their name for the American Society of Cinematographers. That's what's done. You put a scrim on top to lower the light, and you put either reflectors, or at least when you're in Hollywood, you're very serious. You've got generator trucks and 20 kilowatts worth of light shooting at you. So I would actually be a little bit lighter in the background, and it would look totally natural, as opposed to now it looks totally crap. But hey, such is life, such is a lazy Sunday afternoon. Okay, let's see. I haven't covered this one. I'm Ken Rockwell with KenRockwell.com, and this is coming to you live on KenRockwell.tv. I'm taking questions live. If you enter them into the comments section, I'm answering them as they pop up here on my screen. And I've been live for just under 3 hours. And I have not taken a break, although I did stretch. Rodrigo says, what is my storage backup solution for my digital photos? How many terabytes of files do I have today? That is an excellent question. Okay, how do I back it up? Every afternoon when I'm done work, I use a program called Super Duper on my Macintosh. And I simply make an exact bit-for-bit copy, bootable copy, of my hard drives. Now, I have 2 hard drives. I have the solid-state drive inside my Mac Pro. I have the cylindrical Mac Pro. And I also have an external data drive. And I have to run this whole process twice to 2 different partitions on the same external drive. Every afternoon, I use Super Duper to make an exact bootable copy of my computer solid-state drive, that is, and of my data drive. And then I take that drive and I put it someplace. And then I bring back yesterday's drive from that place back into the house and put it for tomorrow's backup. Then each afternoon I do this. The key is to have more than one hard drive, so this way if something crashes while you're doing this, you're not dead. And also the key is to have drives in multiple locations, so if your house burns down or there's a sinkhole and sucks in half the town, that you still have drives elsewhere. It's kind of like the way nature works. Oh, cool. Low battery mode, 20% battery remaining. I started about 90, so I've been going 3 hours. I've been doing live broadcast video here for 3 hours on an iPhone. Barely touched the battery. With the screen, of course, running at full brightness here in daylight. I love this iPhone. In any case, that's how I back up my files. And how many terabytes? Well, that's an excellent question. On the actual computer, I have just some of my photos, the more recent ones. The computer itself has a 1 terabyte hard drive. In terms of all of my photos, I have a 4.5 terabyte hard drive that has not just my photos, which don't take up that much space because I shoot JPEG, but every video I've ever shot. And the problem is these videos are starting to add up. But that's it. And the great thing about shooting JPEGs, there's many great things. The key is I can take everything I've ever done, as well as everybody else on my family's computer, have backups of those, all encrypted on the hard drive. And simply that hard drive, I take any place I go. So if I'm traveling and something blows up, that's really bad, but at least the data is all there. And because it's a bootable clone, here's the point. A lot of backups, it feels good until you actually need to back up. I remember I did this back in like 1990. We had a cassette tape backup in an office I worked in, and the secretaries were all freaked out when I actually tried to restore something. I put a file on, I made a copy of it, I backed it up, then I deleted that file and tried to see if I could restore it, and it didn't work. The secretaries were all freaked out because they just assumed the backup system would work. They didn't realize that Rockwell had to actually try it, discover it didn't. So the key is these make bootable bootable clones, and by bootable that means you fire up your Macintosh, and I forget what you hold down, and you can actually boot from the backup. So now you're running from the backup drive. That means if I'm on vacation, don't feel like bringing my computer, I can just boot from my laptop. I can boot up my main computer on the laptop, although it runs kind of slowly. The key is I boot from the backup drive. So if I lose a drive, I don't care. I simply replace the drive on the computer. I boot the computer from the backup. And then because the backup is running like it was my computer, I simply run that same copy program, which is, of course, on the backup because it backed up from my computer onto itself. I copy from the backup onto the new virginal hard drive, and I'm back to where I was without even worrying about it, which is why I've never had a problem with Macintosh. I don't lose data. But if I did, to be honest, how do I lose data? By doing something stupid. When I accidentally delete something that I needed, that's how I lose data. And that's why I shoot with 2 cards. The second card is backup. My cameras, at least my Nikons, when I hit the delete button too much on the camera, it doesn't delete it on the backup, so I go back and get it. So it's my own stupidity. And that's how I back up my files. Okay, I'm gonna try to do this. I should start getting off now. Let's see, backup bike ride? Yeah, I got time for bike ride. Goof off. Okay. Okay, my human records. Love this. Nice to meet you. Am I joint? I have been a creator for decades. I'm an artist. And so, yeah, I love creating stuff, just taking something from my mind and putting it in a tangible form. This video stuff is just a hoot. It's a lot easier than it was 10 years ago, too. Okay, LJ says he's considering a mirrorless camera, thinking of going to Canon. Oh, Mirrorless for landscape for Canon EOS RP because it's lightweight and I prefer the ergonomics to the R. But for sports, I wouldn't shoot any mirrorless for sports except the Canon A9 or A9 Mark II. So that's a tough one to answer. For Canon, for sports, the answer they want me to give you is obviously the EOS R5 they just announced would seem to be their sports camera. And I'm sure Canon does not make any junk ever. So that's going to be a great camera. But we know the A9's out there and is great. But on the other hand, once Nikon and Canon came out with full-frame mirrorless a year and a half ago, I was like, okay, no need to buy Sony. If Canon comes out with a great one for sports, then again, Sony can go away. Open back to Sennheiser headphones. The sound is really, really good. Well, again, thank you to the geniuses at Apple. I know a couple of people that work there, and one of them pointed out, he goes, I forget, when it came to technology and audio, he says, you know, if it's state of the art and if it's good, don't worry, it's in there. I forget where I put it. The point is Apple knows what they're doing, but they don't make a big thing about it. They've got more smart audio engineers than any other company on the planet. When I test their gear, it's better than any supposed audiophile gear. And these phones and little iPod adapters and stuff, Apple really knocks it out of the park. And I'm glad that Apple still knocks it out of the park. We lost Steve Jobs, what was it, 10 years ago? Their stuff is still fantastic. There's a helo flying overhead. Also, my apologies. This video is only coming through in mono last I checked. I tried to do everything else in stereo. Why do I think Nikon made such a big deal out of massive size of the new Z mount? Oh, simple. I used to work in marketing. Back when I had an office job, one of the office jobs I had was I worked in the marketing department for, well, a company that made very high-tech stuff. The reason it's called FUD, Fear, Uncertainty, and Doubt. And I have a page about that on my website, FUD. And what you do is if you create a larger lens mount just because you can, it doesn't cost anymore, you just make a larger lens mount, you then can tell everybody else that it matters, which it doesn't. And then everybody else has fear, uncertainty, and doubt, thinking, oh, well, if I buy Sony or Canon, the lens mounts are smaller diameter, so must have lower quality. So it's purely for marketing purposes. Yes, it might give the lens designers a little bit more freedom in designing a lens, which means they can make a better lens for less money, potentially, but that's very minor. But here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. My Nikon mirrorless, the first Nikon mirrorless cameras were their S-series of rangefinders back in the 1940s. And again, if you go to my website, go to my Nikon page and click on the button for rangefinders. There's my sections for rangefinder cameras from 1940s to 1960s. They had a lens mount that's only about 20 millimeters in diameter, less than an inch around, and Nikon made a 50 millimeter f1.1 lens that went in there. So don't tell me that you need a larger diameter lens mount to get an f1 lens in there. You don't. So that's all marketing. It's to make people who don't design this stuff for a living every day have a little bit of fear and be driven to want to buy whatever it is that Nikon, in this case, are trying to sell. And why are they only releasing f1.8 AF lenses? I don't know, because their lenses are kind of boring that they introduced. That's probably why. Micro Four Thirds. My thoughts on Micro Four Thirds is the one Olympus I shot I thought looked great. For longevity, I think overall, the more compact cameras are going away, being morphed into telephones and cell phones, and the big cameras will be around. Hey, can you educate us on how 1-inch sensor works, the Micro Four Thirds, how they're relevant to each other? Well, you know, it's simple. It's just a question of size. The thing about 1 inch is 1 inch is a scam. It's a lie. I have an article about this on my site, kenrockwell.com. 1-inch sensors have nothing to do with 1 inch. The thing is, if this is an inch, the 1-inch sensor is like this small. It's a total lie. That comes back from the days of vacuum tubes, when you had a vacuum tube that was 1 inch in diameter on the outside, and the little sensor would be a small part of that on the inside. And the manufacturers who use 1 inch to describe their sensor size are lying to try to make you think that somehow, because APS-C is about an inch on one dimension. So making you think it's about equivalent, no, it's a complete lie. So the 1-inch sensors are great for point and shoots. All those actors complaining about hot lights. You know, all the actors complaining about hot lights, do they still complain? Because now that we have LED lights and HMI used in studios, I don't know that many people are working on the purely tungsten light run full up. Sup? Hey, Oscar Dominguez, hola. Nikon does not pay attention to F-mount any longer, moves to Z-mount, or 2, Nikon's running out of money in R&D budget. What do I think? You know, I think Nikon pays a lot of attention to F-mount. Didn't they just introduce a 120 to 300 millimeter of 2.8? That sounds pretty attentive to me. And yeah, they're probably running out of money, but no one ever runs out of money. The thing is, this is all long-term. They're a Japanese company, they think long-term. And even though they decrease their budget, they still have a huge budget, so they're coming out with new stuff, so I'm not worrying about that. I look at what I can get today that helps me make pictures today, which is why I prefer the Canon full-frame mirrorless. Or for DSLRs, I prefer the Canon full-frame DSLRs. But I do prefer the Nikon APS-C DSLR. The best software for digital photography is the software that runs on your computer. You know, for digital photography, I like Snapseed, run on my iPhone. On my computer, I use camera bits, photo mechanic to sort out what I got and just see what I shot that day and pick out and prioritize which are the best. And then I dragged it into Photoshop CS6 from about 10 years ago before they went to the rental model. And I play with it on Photoshop CS6, then push it out there. Back up all photos to OneDrive and Amazon Photos. That's good too. Have I seen the Angry Photographer, Ken Wheeler? No, don't know who that is. What iPhone are you using? I'm using the iPhone 10, excuse me, no, the iPhone 11. Yeah, it used to be the 10, but I'm using the new one, the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and I love it to death. Bike ride, yeah, you're right. Oh, people are getting tired of where you from? I'm from Long Island. Okay. You know, I like that bike ride. I'm getting low battery limits here. I've been on for 3 hours and 10 minutes, and how anybody, well, I'm sure this I started at about, I don't know, 80%. 3 hours later, I'm at 20%. Oh, I was going to graph my calculator, which is in my phone. 70 minus 20 is 50 or 60% of your 60%. So, okay, figure battery life on the iPhone 11 Pro Max means probably at least 4 hours of live streaming video here on YouTube. Well, I say, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for putting up with the crappy lighting and crappy cinematography on my end. Hopefully it's been a nice, relaxing poolside. The noise you're hearing is a 1940s World War II aircraft with invasion stripes flying over my house, but I don't think they're invading today. In any case, you guys are great. Thank you so much for watching my television shows. Anything else you've got, kenrockwell.com is the place to go if you've got any questions. You know, probably one of the best ways to reach me is any comment anywhere on my site. Probably at least once a day I go in and answer every single comment that comes in on my videos as a comment. Not in this live video because I'm doing these live. But go in there, and if you've got a question about anything, I usually get right back to it. My email, I get so much junk. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't get any junk comments, but I do get so much junk email. I don't really respond to email, Ken Rockwell, that frequently. But I'm a real guy. You can always get a hold of me. I thank you so much for watching my feeds. And, gosh, 3 hours and 10 minutes. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all soon. Again, I've got lots of views coming up, and this has been Ken Rockwell, kenrockwell.com, and I'm going to hit this, and thank you again for watching.